Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles. Chapter 4663. Big Brother. Demon Venerable Shi hurriedly explained, I'm sure you know that the netherworld energy is the energy of death, and the energy refined by Confucian cultivators is the energy of life. If you absorb the energy of life, you can activate the energy of death, which is beneficial to the cultivation of the substitute of the judge of hell. However, the noble energy is the energy of justice, which is the natural opposite of the devil energy of the devil race. It's completely different from the Tao of life and death. I can't cultivate the cultivation technique of the devil race with the help of the noble energy, so I can't activate the innate energy. Of course, I've thought the same as you, Big Brother. I'm a condensed body of a devil spirit from the devil formation of the upper realm, so I can totally suppress the innate energy and control it. But when I tried it just now, it's not like that at all. Fellow Taoist, you're too careless. Taoist which echoed, the 9 cauldrons are used to suppress the fate of the human race. How can they be activated by the devil race? Xiao Hua's brows furrowed. Taoist which had wronged him by saying he was careless, because in his heart, he had never regarded Demon Venerable Shi as a real Demon Venerable. Xiao Hua had cultivated the 5 energies of origin in his 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and cultivated the devil cultivation technique in his bloodline. Later on, when he became a clone, he gave these techniques to his clones to cultivate. Usually, when he activated the devil cultivation technique and the Confucian cultivation technique, there was nothing wrong with them. Therefore, he always thought that Demon Venerable Shi could also activate the Confucian cultivation technique like him. But he had never thought that Demon Venerable Shi had become a real devil, and he could no longer freely use the Confucian cultivation technique like Xiao Hua. What about my fellow Taoists? Xiao Hua asked the other clones worriedly. Let me tell you. Taoist Witch and the others looked at each other and answered, the noble energy has no innate conflict with what we cultivate. We have no problem with it. Hee. Reverend Yun even laughed and said, my heavenly dragon language technique can activate the 9 cauldrons better than the 5 energies of origin. Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed and said, the dragon race has always had a secret with the human race. It's just that we don't know about it. And you've activated the 9 cauldrons before, so of course you can do it. Big Brother, what do we do now? Demon Venerable Shi asked with a sullen face. Our fortune gate has exactly 9 patriarchs. Since we're missing one, we should send a Confucian cultivator to replace you. Xiao Hua said helplessly, even though he really didn't want to expose his relationship with his avatars. What about Heavenly Tao Xiao Hua and Karma Xiao Hua? Celestial suggested. Their attacks should be more powerful than ours. They haven't formed yet, we can't place our hopes on them. Xiao Hua shook his head. Didn't Big Brother say that? My fortune gate still has a 10th old master. Honorable Devil Shi suggested. Why don't we let him come? He has no chance. Xiao Hua waved his hand, even if he comes back, his strength can't compare to ours. You'd better practice the same Qi connection technique first before thinking about how to activate the 9 cauldrons. As for the Confucian cultivators, I have come into contact with only the master of the 3 Purities Palace. As for which one, I will discuss it with the immortal emperor at the Jade Pool. That's the only way. Lightning Reverend nodded, it will take us a lot of time to comprehend the same Qi connection technique. Let's talk about it at that time. Since the discussion had come to an end, all the clones returned to the space and seized the time to comprehend the same Qi connection technique, leaving only Reverend Yun to guard the Fortune Palace. Xiao Hua summoned Xian and told him that he was going to attend the Jade Pool gathering at the High Cloud Side Palace. Xian didn't have any hesitation and refused Xiao Hua's request to take him along. However, he heard her very shyly say, Xiao Lang, His Majesty is giving pointers to the 9 regions great array to let this concubine follow you. This is already a crime against the whole world. If you bring me to the Jade Pool gathering, it will be a slap to the Immortal Palace's face. I'll stay at the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range and help you with the sex affairs. When Bai An returns, I'll help you with the star-picking tower. All right. Xiao Hua thought that it would be much safer to send Xin into the space, but when he thought about how far the alien insects were from here and how Reverend Yun was guarding the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range, he nodded in agreement. My dear Xiao, are you going to attend the Jade Pool gathering? Seeing that Xiao Hua was about to leave the Fortune Dao Palace, Xin explained obediently, if you're going to the High Cloud Side Palace, you only need to open His Majesty's decree and there will naturally be a patrol envoy to welcome you. Before heading to the Jade Pool gathering, there's still one more place to go. Xiao Hua looked outside the Fortune Dao Palace and replied thoughtfully. Where? Xin blurted out. However, she smiled and said, I'm asking too much. Oh, this isn't important. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, the world's Dao sects are already declining. Today, the hidden immortal Dao gate is opening. With me, Xiao Hua, in the world, who dares to let their disciples be bullied? He. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, Xin covered her mouth and laughed, Reverend Xiao really cares about the world. I'm only at the 4th level of elemental energy, but I actually dared to set up a blood steel in the bronze pillar state. If this matter were to spread to the immortal palace, it would definitely be treated as a huge joke. Even without the patrol envoy's help, ordinary soil would flatten this blood steel. I don't know what Reverend Xiao was thinking that day. You actually dared to say such bold words. Aren't you afraid of being hunted down by the Xianhuang order? Xiao Hua shrugged and said somewhat embarrassedly, at that time, this Xiao had just arrived at the bronze pillar state from the country of Xi. I didn't know about the Xianhuang order. Moreover, Dao Shan died too miserably. This Xiao was furious. When I thought of the hidden immortal continent's Dao gate being bullied, this Xiao erected the blood steel in a fit of anger. Later on, when I thought about it, I also felt that I was too arrogant. However, this Xiao didn't have time to go to the bronze pillar state. Hearing this, Xin's face turned serious and said, this blood steel. Forget it, I won't talk about it. You'll know when you see it. Fortunately, Dao Shan died miserably. The bronze pillar state's king felt that he was in the wrong. Later on, the bronze pillar state's fate declined and was replaced by another state called the Jade Ping state. At that time, you already made a name for yourself in the blood pool of gods and devils. Some scholarly families' literary sages also helped you spread the seeds. That Jade Ping state didn't dare to offend the literary sages and kept the Seven Sons Temple. As for later on, I was imprisoned and didn't know about the Seven Sons Temple. Xiao Hua's heart thumped as he asked curiously, oh, why are you hesitating? What happened before? It's fine if you don't know about it. Xin smiled. She originally didn't want to talk about it. However, looking at Xiao Hua's expression, she rolled her eyes and said, forget it, since you want to know, I'll tell you. Actually, you'll know when you think about it. You're only a 4th grade Dao sect cultivator. You actually dared to set up a blood steel in the hidden immortal continent. Although the bronze pillar state didn't dare to touch your blood steel, what about the other scholarly cultivators? The great grandmaster dismissed it with a smile. What about the masters? Literary sages? To be honest, you still have to thank the Bronze Pillar Academy. Oh, no, it should be called the Jade Ping Academy now. Otherwise, not only would your blood steel be filthy, even the Seven Sons Temple would have been destroyed. Of course, now that your name has shaken the world, the blood steel and Seven Sons Temple would naturally be different from before. I'm telling you now because I want you to know that although it's good for people to have lofty aspirations, if you rashly tell others about it and don't have the strength to realize it, you might become a joke. Before Xin could finish, Xiao Hua laughed and said, don't worry. With my current status, how could I make a move in the Jade Ping Academy? You're thinking too much. After saying that, Xiaohua's figure flashed and turned into a rainbow as he rushed out of the Fortune Dao Palace. Seeing that Xiaohua had left, Xian shook his head with a wry smile. Xiaohua, how could you know about the matters of the world by yourself? Even if you're now a Grand Ascension stage Dao sect cultivator, I'm afraid you don't know that the blood steel has been erected in the Seven Suns Temple for hundreds of years and that many strange things have happened. The soaring Dragon Mountain Range wasn't too far away from the Copper Pillar Nation and the current Jade Rock Nation. Not long after Xiaohua flew out, his spiritual force had already found the Seven Yang Monastery. He didn't need to use the lightning escape technique. In just a short while, Xiaohua had already flown above the Seven Yang Monastery. Hearing Xian's words, Xiaohua felt a little nervous. He didn't know what the Seven Suns Temple was like now. Moreover, Su Ji had specially mentioned the Seven Suns Temple in the Star Moon Palace, so Xiaohua had a lot of ideas along the way. But when he saw the current state of the Seven Suns Temple, he was a little surprised. He couldn't help but whisper, "Oh. That's a little strange." Because the Seven Suns Temple was still the Seven Suns Temple, it seemed that the 300 years hadn't left any traces in the Seven Suns Temple. Although there were no traces of people in the Seven Suns Temple, the blood steel was still standing there and hadn't collapsed like Xiaohua had imagined. Even the entire Seven Suns Temple was abnormally clean and didn't have a garden full of weeds like Xiaohua had imagined. Something must have happened that I don't know about. Xiaohua thought as he descended towards the Seven Suns Temple. However, before he could land, he saw 3 cultivators in Taoist robes rushing towards the Seven Suns Temple in a rather pathetic manner. Behind them, there were 2 Confucian cultivators who were chasing after them on clouds with flying swords in their hands. When the 3 Taoist cultivators saw the shadow of the Seven Suns Temple appear in front of them, joy appeared on their faces. They activated their dermic powers and their speed increased by 30%. On the other hand, the 2 scholarly cultivators became anxious. They looked at each other and opened their mouths, sending several mouthfuls of true qi into the flying swords in their hands. Woo! The 2 flying swords turned into sword lights and chased after 2 of the 3 cultivators. At the same time, the 2 scholarly cultivators' bodies became sluggish and fell a few feet. It seemed that their true qi was somewhat exhausted. I hope that when he sees this, he can leave a comment in the book review section. Thank you. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it. Chapter 46-64. The flying swords were like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, they had already landed on the backs of the 2 Dao sect cultivators. The 2 Dao sect cultivators didn't panic and waved their hands behind them. 2 defensive magic treasures flew out and blocked the flying swords. Puff puff. The flying swords pierced the magic treasures and emitted a bright light. The flying swords and magic treasures were both sent flying at the same time. Break. At this moment, the 2 Confucian cultivators behind began to chant inscriptions. Boom boom. The 2 flying swords exploded at the same time and turned into a rain of swords that fell towards the 2. Not good. The 2 scanned with their divine senses and both knew that things were not good. Xiaohua, who was high up in the sky, frowned. Just as he was about to raise his hand, the 2 Dao sect cultivators waved their hands at the same time. 2 black ropes flew out of their hands and fell towards the 3rd person. Looking at the 3rd person, it was clear that he was prepared. Just as the 2 Dao sect cultivators attacked, his body suddenly fell. The 2 hands under his robe raised at the same time and 2 small snakes that were about an inch long rushed out and bit towards the 2 Dao sect cultivators' arms. Seeing the 3 of them fighting like this, Xiaohua's eyes flashed with anger. He immediately withdrew his divine ability and stood quietly in the sky, no longer attacking. Swish swish. When the 2 small snakes appeared, the 2 Dao sect cultivators who attacked seemed to be afraid. They hurriedly controlled the ropes to land on the small snakes. With 2 soft sounds, the small snakes were killed. At the same time, puff puff. With several muffled sounds, 2 clusters of broken sword light fell onto the backs of the 2 Tao sect cultivators. Although there were some fluctuations of magic power on their backs, they were still unable to block it. The 2 Tao sect cultivators fell to the ground. Humph. The 3rd Tao sect cultivator coldly snorted and flew high up into the sky. Like a bird, he charged into the Seven Suns Temple. Once he entered the Seven Suns Temple, the Taoist cultivator's courage was boosted. He stood on the wall of the Seven Suns Temple and shouted coldly, "Kong Feng, Kong Jia, the 2 of you have chased I for more than 6,000 miles. Now that I can no longer fly, come and kill me." At this time, the 2 Confucian cultivators had already flown to the 2 injured Taoist cultivators who had fallen to the ground. They ignored the provocation of the Taoist cultivators and raised their hands to take out 2 thin ropes that were more than a foot long. As their true chi fell on the ropes, blood-red armor inscriptions gushed out. As soon as the inscriptions appeared, the 2 thin ropes fell on the 2 Taoist cultivators like inscription chains and firmly tied them up. After doing all this, one of the Confucian cultivators raised his eyes to look at the Taoist cultivator standing on the wall and said coldly, "You Feihu, if you have the guts, then come down and compete. What kind of man are you if you're standing on top? The higher you stand, the farther you can see." The Taoist cultivator named Yu Feihu saw that the 2 Confucian cultivators didn't dare to come closer and became even bolder. He said proudly, "Don't tell me the 2 of you don't want to see 1,000 miles and reach a higher level. Damn it." One of the Confucian cultivators was a little angry. He raised his hand and pointed at Yu Feihu. He said angrily, "You have the ability to kill 49 young boys and girls as a blood sacrifice for your Dharma artifact. Why do you have the guts to fight me to the death? Those young boys and girls are people in trouble. Even if I don't do anything, they won't live for more than a few days. Since that's the case, why can't I sacrifice them for my Dharma artifact?" Yu Feihu sneered. "Besides, the 2 of you are just constables from the Qin kingdom. Why are you in the Fengjing kingdom's territory? Since it's a heinous crime, no matter where you are, I should arrest you." The more the Confucian cultivator spoke, the angrier he became. Suddenly, his body moved, and a multicolored light appeared as he pounced at Yu Feihu. Ha! Yu Feihu wasn't afraid at all. His body flashed and he jumped into the Seven Suns Temple. He laughed and said, "Kong Jia, why don't you come in? This is the Seven Suns Temple. In front of me is Taoist Zhao's blood steel. You dare to bully my Taoist disciples in front of the blood steel? Aren't you afraid that your Qin kingdom will annihilate the fortune gate?" Sure enough, Kong Jia's body flew to the walls of the Seven Suns Temple and stopped. She didn't dare to take half a step forward. There was a look of unwillingness on her face. "What's wrong? You don't dare to come in?" Yu Feihu became even more arrogant. He laughed wildly and said, "Didn't you chase me for thousands of miles to take my life? Now that I'm standing in front of you, why don't you dare to move? Confucian cultivators, O Confucian cultivators, you have stood tall in the hidden immortal continent for countless years. My Taoist cultivators have been humiliated by you for countless years. Now, my Taoist sect is no longer the Taoist sect of the past. My Taoist sect can finally stand tall. Damn it!" Kong Jia was enraged. She urged her body to charge into the Seven Suns Temple to capture Yu Feihu. When Yu Feihu saw Kong Jia flying out, he couldn't help but be stunned. He hurriedly jumped down the wall. At this moment, Kong Feng had already flown behind Kong Jia. Seeing Kong Jia acting rashly, Kong Feng turned pale with fright. He disregarded everything and rushed forward to block Kong Jia. He anxiously said, "Kong Jia, what are you doing? Don't forget. This is the blood steel where the Taoist sect's Grand Ascension Stage Taoist sect was established. It's not a place for small fries like us to barge in. Our lives are a small matter. If we provoke the fortune gate, what will happen to my Kong family in Qin Kingdom? Don't fall for this bastard's trick. Damn it. Kong Jie saw that Yu Feihu was about to jump off the wall, but when she saw Kong Feng blocking her, she arrogantly stood on the wall. However, Yu Feihu was tactful and didn't dare to provoke her anymore. Kong Jie couldn't help but curse, Daoist Xiao is really. Unfortunately, before Kong Jie could say anything else, Kong Feng was scared out of his wits. He covered Kong Jie's mouth and dragged her away. Ha! Yu Feihu looked at the two constables and laughed to his heart's content. He pointed at the two of them and said, "You should know that the days of my Dao Gate civil servants are over." Scram! While Yu Feihu was laughing, there was a sudden roar that sounded like a thunderclap. It scared Yu Feihu. At the same time, a huge force came from behind him. Before he could react, he was thrown off the wall by the huge force. Furthermore, at the same time that the huge force landed on his body, the FALE around him was already restricted. Scum of the Dao Gate. At the place where Yu Feihu was standing, an old man wearing a scholar's robe appeared. This old man's forehead was protruding, and his face looked very simple. His head of white hair was as neat as silver strands. Although it was blown by the wind, not a single strand of hair fluttered. Wasn't this the Copper Pillar Imperial Academy's Beigo Zhenming that Xiao Hua had met at the Black Wind Ridge? However, time had not left its mark on the Seven Suns Shrine, but it had left its mark on his body. Many thanks, Senior. Kong Jie was overjoyed. She rushed over and captured Yu Feihu. Kong Feng hurriedly flew in front of Beigo Zhenming and bowed respectfully. Junior Kong Feng greets Senior. Senior, how dare you use your divine ability in the Seven Suns Shrine? If the Fortune Gate and Daoist Xiao were to find out, I'm afraid a calamity will befall you. Beigo Zhenming stood in the air and waved his hand with a smile. You are too careful. Daoist Xiao's intention in setting up the blood steel was to establish the Dao Gate, not to protect these scum of the Dao Gate. Just like those rumors, no one dares to go to the Fortune Gate to verify them. These shameless scum used the rumors to absolve themselves of their crimes. In the end, Daoist Zhao's intention was covered up, and his kindness was distorted. So that's how it is. Hearing this, Kong Feng was enlightened. He looked at the blood steel in the Seven Suns Shrine and asked in a low voice, Senior, you. How do you know so much? He, this old man is Beigo Zhenming. Beigo Zhenming replied with a smile, when Daoist Xiao set up the blood steel, this old man was the dean of the Copper Pillar Imperial Academy. I even fought with Daoist Xiao. However, this old man is already old, and Daoist Xiao is like the sun in the sky. This old man felt Daoist Xiao's glory back then, and because I was entrusted by someone, I opened a library near the Seven Suns Shrine and spent the rest of my life here. Oh, so it's Senior Beigo. This junior greets you. Kong Feng had never heard of Beigo Zhenming's name before, but he still hurried to greet him. At this time, Kong Jie had also captured the three scum of the Dao Gate and came over to greet Beigo Zhenming. The space looked at the blood steel and asked in a low voice, can this junior enter the Seven Suns Shrine? To pay respects to Daoist Zhao's blood steel? Of course. Beigo Zhenming smiled and said, Daoist Xiao never said that the Seven Suns Shrine was a forbidden area for Confucian cultivators. Anyone can enter. Hearing this, Kong Jie moved her body and entered the Seven Suns Shrine. Kong Feng opened his mouth, then entered with a bitter smile on his face. The Dao Gate of the world has already declined. Today, the hidden immortal Dao Gate is opened. With me, Xiao Hua, in the world, how dare you let your disciples be bullied? Kong Jie looked at the blood steel in the Seven Suns Shrine and read it word by word. Finally, she said, Daoist Zhao's tone is really big. At this point, Kong Jie realized that she was being rude. She hurriedly rolled her eyes and said, Senior Beigo, if Daoist Xiao said those words with the strength of a Daoist Mahayana realm, no one in the world would not bow down. Who would dare to say no? However, this junior heard that Taoist Xiao was only around the 5th grade of origin energy. His strength was not as profound as seniors. How could he dare to say such bold words? Beigo Zhenming smiled and said, "You are absolutely right. If Taoist Xiao said those words now, it would definitely be bold words. However, if he said those words back then, even this old man felt that it was somewhat arrogant. However, the situation that day was like this. Then, Beigo Zhenming explained the situation. Kong Feng and Kong Jie were originally constables. After hearing this, they gnashed their teeth and said, "The Jiang clan is really despicable. No wonder Taoist Xiao was so angry that he set up the blood steel." Chapter 46-65. That's right. Taoist Master Xiao didn't set up this blood steel to provoke us Confucian cultivators. It's a steel of justice for the human race. Beigo Zhenming nodded. Taoist Master Xiao wanted to let the Jiang family and the Copper Pillar State know that even if the Taoist sect declined, justice still exists. If Confucian cultivators ignore justice, they will also decline. Oh, Senior Beigua. Hearing this, Kong Feng nodded his head, but Kong Jie couldn't help but ask, "Why are there so many cracks on this blood steel? It doesn't look like a complete steel." Yes, this blood steel is no longer the blood steel that Taoist Master Xiao used to set up the Taoist sect. Beigua Zhenming explained, ever since Taoist Master Xiao left the Copper Pillar State, this blood steel became more and more famous. Many immortals came to check it out, but many of them took it as a joke and left. Some of them were unhappy, but after hearing about Dao Shan, they didn't make things difficult for this blood steel. However, there are still some immortals who don't like this blood steel and don't care about Taoist Master Zhao's reputation. They want to destroy this blood steel. Usually, I will persuade and stop them. If I can't stop them, I can only let them do it. After that, I will restore this blood steel. Of course, ever since Taoist Master Xiao planted good seeds in the God-fiend blood pool, the sage of literature also spread the word. Therefore, fewer immortals came to the Seven Suns Temple to make things difficult for this blood steel. Beigua Zhenming said with a smile. I also have more free time to teach students how to recite. Just as Beigua Zhenming was talking to the two constables, the sound of a child reciting could be heard from the side of the Seven Suns Temple. Senior Beigua. Kong Feng was puzzled. I have a question to ask you. Oh. Please ask. Beigua Zhenming replied with a smile. This. Kong Feng hesitated for a moment and asked embarrassedly, I don't understand. Senior, you are a Confucian cultivator and have fought with Taoist Master Xiao. Moreover, you are not from the Jiang family. Why are you guarding the Seven Suns Temple? Why? Are you restoring the blood steel? You are not the only one asking about this. Beigua Zhenming laughed. You don't have to be embarrassed. This old man is not a person who fishes for fame, nor have I ever thought of relying on this matter to become famous. This old man was originally entrusted to guard this place by someone. That person was afraid that Taoist Xiao would feel resentment towards the Bronze Pillar State and even the Confucian cultivators of Yu Province after seeing the blood steel destroyed. That person asked this old man to guard this place. Who is that person? Kong Jie said in surprise. That person actually predicted that Taoist Master Xiao would definitely have the strength of a Taoist Grand Ascension stage cultivator in the future. You don't need to know who that person is. Beigua Zhenming replied. I don't know whether or not he knew about Taoist Master Zhao's current situation. However, at that time, the Bronze Pillar country had just been destroyed and I was a little disheartened. I resigned from the Imperial Academy and wanted to live in seclusion in the mountains. That person probably wanted me to stay and told me his worries. Since I had nothing to do, I saw some helpless children around the Seven Sons Temple and some disabled beggars. My heart skipped a beat and I thought of Dao Shan. The Taoist sect only knows how to give porridge while we Confucian cultivators know how to educate. I don't believe that I can't do better than Dao Shan. Therefore, I agreed to that person's request. On one hand, I will guard the blood steel and the Seven Sons Temple. On the other hand, I will teach those poor people how to make a living. Look at the Seven Sons Temple now. Isn't it more lively than the Seven Sons Temple in the past? The way we Confucian cultivators help the world far surpasses that of the Taoist sect. Che. Just as Beigo Zhenming was excitedly explaining, a voice came from the sky. I thought that you were guarding the blood steel for me out of kindness. I didn't expect you to be so determined to win and compete with the dead Master Dao Shan. Following the voice, a figure descended and stood in front of Beigo Zhenming. Ah! Xiao! Taoist Xiao. Beigo Zhenming was slightly shocked. He looked at Xiao Hua, who was not exactly the same as he was hundreds of years ago. He hurriedly bowed and said, Zhenming greets Taoist Xiao. Please forgive me. No need, no need. How could Xiao Hua let Beigo Zhenming bow? He hurriedly supported him with a smile and said, You and I are old friends. You are also helping me guard the blood steel. How can I blame you? Kong Jia and Kong Feng did not dare to be negligent. They hurriedly bowed and saluted. However, there was a trace of fear in their eyes. After the two finished saluting, Xiao Hua helped them up and said with a smile, I have already seen the situation of the two of you arresting the three Taoist sect cultivators. You two have justice in your hearts. Although the crimes committed by the three of them were not within the scope of your duties, you two still pursued them. I am deeply gratified. I will definitely not play favoritism just because they are Taoist sect cultivators. Moreover, in this old man's opinion, such a heartless person should be killed immediately to avoid any more trouble. Alright, I will let Taoist Xiao know. Kong Feng said respectfully, we are only constables and do not have the authority to make decisions. This matter can only be handed over to the Yamen for trial before being executed. Forget it, forget it. This is the matter of you Confucian cultivators. I do not care. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said with a smile. Then, he raised his hand and a large hand-light image fell on the blood steel. Shua. The blood steel was easily pulled out by the large hand. Senior, this is. Kong Jia was slightly bewildered and hurriedly asked. Xiao Hua looked at the cracks on the blood steel and the words on it and said, the Taoist sect in the world has already declined. Today, the hidden immortal sect opens. With me, Xiao Hua, in the world, who dares to let their disciples be bullied? After saying that, Xiao Hua looked at Beigo Zhenming and said with a bit of self-mockery, thinking back, I was really arrogant. I actually wanted to fight against the entire Confucian sect with the strength of a fifth-grade origin energy. Today, I am standing at the peak of the three continents. Only now do I understand that the strength of our Taoist sect is not something that can be accomplished by one person. Even if I have such ambition, I do not need to erect a blood steel here. The steel that I want to erect should be in the hearts of the cultivators of the three continents. Following Xiao Hua's words, the large hand clenched and the blood steel that had been destroyed by countless people and restored by Beigo Zhenming instantly turned into powder. Seeing the powder of the blood steel floating in the air, Beigo Zhenming's heart immediately lightened. However, at the same time, there seemed to be a trace of melancholy in his heart. Wait for the two of them to return. After Xiao Hua destroyed the blood steel, he said to Kong Feng and Kong Jia, spread this matter to the cultivators of the world. My blood steel has been destroyed, but my heart will not change. If the disciples of the Taoist sect want to rise, they must constantly strive for self-improvement. At this point, Xiao Hua suddenly laughed involuntarily. Kong Feng and Kong Jia were only bailiffs of two small countries. How could they have the qualifications to spread the news on his behalf? Moreover, they were Confucian sect cultivators. Thus, he waved his hand and said, "You wait, I am thinking too much." Yes, Junior understands. When Kong Feng and Kong Jia heard this, they let out a long breath. Kong Feng smiled and said, "Junior will spread the truth of what happened in Seven Suns Temple. Senior, please rest assured." N. Xiaohua nodded. After seeing the two of them salute, he flew away with Yu Feihu and the other two. Daoist Xiao. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Beigo Zhenming first raised his hand and saluted. "This old man thanks Daoist Zhao's magnanimity on behalf of the Confucian sect." "No need to be so polite," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Do Shanjun asked you to guard here. Isn't it because he is afraid that I will bring up old scores? Since I know your intentions, how can I really pursue the matter? Where is the magistrate?" Hearing that Xiaohua immediately guessed that it was Do Shanjun, Beigo Zhenming was puzzled and asked curiously, "After the Battle of Black Wind Mountain, he resigned from his position as the Academy's magistrate. After that, he hurriedly came back and told this old man about this matter. I have not seen him in the past few hundred years. The magistrate is a hidden expert." Xiaohua naturally would not tell the truth. He only vaguely said, "He has already returned to the place he should return to." "Oh. That's good, that's good." Beigo Zhenming nodded and said with a smile, "Back then, this old man felt that this person was different, which was why I made an exception and hired him. It seems like this old man's foresight is still not bad." "Of course." Xiaohua echoed, "The magistrate is also someone this old man admires." As he spoke, Xiaohua raised his eyes and looked at the source of the sound of reading not far away. He said thoughtfully, "Daoist Beigo, your academy is a little small." "How is that an academy?" Beigo Zhenming replied, "That's just a school to enlighten young children." At this point, Beigo Zhenming sighed again and said, "Back then, this old man fought with Daoist Xiao and was deeply moved. When this old man gave the Imperial Academy's scrolls to Daoist Xiao, this old man also revisited these scrolls. At that time, this old man suddenly realized that the true essence of Confucian cultivation is not to fight, but to help the world and educate people. Governing the world with etiquette and enlightening the souls of people with Confucianism is what this old man should do." "Oh." Xiaohua was a little surprised as he looked at Beigo Zhenming. Although what he said was not the true five qis unification, with Beigo Zhenming's strength, it was still a commendable thing to be able to calm down and search for the true essence of Confucian cultivation. Beigo Zhenming continued, "Therefore, this old man had the intention to retreat after the war. After the Bronze Pillar country was destroyed, this old man completely lived in seclusion and studied here. After that, this old man also gave out porridge and clothes for a few years. However, when I saw that the child beggars did not have the ability to support themselves and giving out porridge could only treat the symptoms, I opened a school to teach the child beggars how to read and write, to learn how to support themselves. At the same time, when these child beggars grew up, they opened workshops nearby and ran businesses, taking in even more beggars and using their strength to earn money, to achieve the effect of supporting themselves. Friends who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, gift it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4666. Soon after, Beigo Zhenming recounted everything he had done in the past few years. He didn't mention anything about the Blood Steel's destruction or the Seven Suns Monastery's provocation. Xiaohua nodded his head inwardly and said, "Fellow immortal Beigua, I really have to look at you in a new light. In the past few hundred years, fellow immortal Beigua has really undergone a complete transformation. There's no need for Daoist to praise me." Beigo Zhenming nodded and said, "I was biased against the Daoist sects before, but after some self-reflection, I feel that the Daoist sects, the Confucian cultivators, and even the Buddhist sects are all cultivation methods of the human race. Although we have different Daos, we can help the world together. Thus, when this old man taught my students, I always instilled such thoughts into them. I even compared the Taoist sect, Confucian sect, and Buddhist sect's thoughts. It's a pity. This old man's foundation is too weak. After cultivating for several hundred years, I'm already at the end of my rope. I'm afraid I won't be able to live for much longer. Good. Xiaohua finally understood why Su Ji had specially instructed him to come to the Seven Sons Monastery. He clapped his hands and said, how could Dean not know about dying at dawn and dying at night? At this point, why would Dean still have any regrets? Haha, Beigua Zhenming laughed and said, since Taoist Xiao is here, this old man's biggest knot in my heart has been untied. Even if I don't have the heart to die at dawn and dying at night, this old man has no more regrets. It can't be, right? Xiaohua's tone changed as he rubbed his nose and said with a smile, this Seven Sons Monastery is so big, but there's no one to look after it. Wouldn't it be a waste? Isn't this Dean's regret? What does Taoist mean? Beigua Zhenming was a little confused as he looked around the Seven Sons Monastery. However, after a short while, he came to a realization and said, Taoist, this is the Seven Sons Monastery. Although Taoist's blood steel is no longer here, with Taoist's current reputation, who would dare to study here? However, Taoist can rest assured, this old man will instruct the people in the library to look after this place well. Of course, it would be best if Taoist could send a Fortune Gate disciple over to take over this Seven Sons Monastery. This place is too small. Xiaohua did not conceal his thoughts, laughing as he said, if my Fortune Gate wants to do something, the Xiao country can do it, there is no need to make arrangements here. How about this, immortal friend Beigua, I'll leave this place to you from now on. Beigua Zhenming said with some fear, you think too highly of me, spiritual master. This old man is already old, and I'm afraid my energy is limited. It's fine. Xiaohua raised his hand and took out a jade bottle, handing it over to Beigua Zhenming and said, this is the rejuvenation pill, after fellow immortal takes it, you'll know how powerful it is. After stuffing the rejuvenation pill into Beigua Zhenming's hand, Xiaohua looked at it again. He casually took out a large rock from the space and placed it at a corner of the Seven Sons Temple. He said, I'll inscribe some words for fellow immortal and use them as instructions for the school. I believe that even if Tao sect cultivators come, they won't make things difficult for fellow immortal. This. Beigua Zhenming looked at the rejuvenation pill in his hand, still unable to make a decision. Xiaohua did not make things difficult for him and said, this is just an idea of mine. I can't bear to let the Seven Sons Temple be abandoned, and I can't bear to let the Yu province's child beggars have no books to read and no skills to survive. That's why I suggested this. Fellow immortal, you can think about it. If you feel that it's inappropriate, you can forget about it. After he finished speaking, Xiaohua activated his divine ability and raised his hand. Several golden lights fell on the huge rock, and after a series of light crackling sounds, several large characters were revealed on the huge rock. At the top, it said, for Beigua Zhenming. At the bottom, it said, Fortune Gates Xiaohua. In the middle, it said, unity, tension, seriousness, liveliness. Spiritual Master. Beigua Zhenming was stunned and said in shock, this. What does this mean? Haha. Xiaohua's figure soared into the sky as he laughed, this is Su. Professor Su's school's motto when he was young. It's written here to commemorate him. This old man respectfully sends spiritual master Xiao off. Seeing Xiaohua fly away, Beigua Zhenming did not dare to delay. He stood in the Seven Sons Temple and respectfully sent Xiaohua off. When Xiaohua flew out of sight, a bitter smile appeared on his face. He looked at the words on the huge rock and shook his head, this old man took a lot of effort to get rid of this burden. I don't want to get into trouble again. However, when he turned around, he hesitated for a moment and looked in the direction of the school. He rubbed his chin and said, "A few days ago, Chu Chong said that there were 10 child beggars in the solitary leaf country who had nowhere to go. If they could come to the Seven Suns Temple, it would be a good choice. Forget it, this old man should take this rejuvenation pill and see what kind of effects it has." Immediately, Beiguo Zhenming sat on the ground and opened the jade bottle. He placed the rejuvenation pill refined by the lightning immortal into his mouth. When Xiao Hua flew out of the Seven Suns Temple, he felt relieved. He did not expect that the blood steel in the Seven Suns Temple would become a refuge for Taoist cultivators. If these Taoist cultivators were honest and upright, Xiao Hua would not mind leaving the blood steel behind. However, after looking at Yu Feihu, Xiao Hua knew that these Taoist cultivators would only come here to pay their respects. They would definitely not beg for protection. Moreover, the blood steel was just like Grandmaster Dao Shan's charity in the past. Although it could be seen as a good deed, it could not give people the ability to be self-sufficient. In the end, it would still be a declining Taoist sect. Moreover, the blood steel was not enough to support the Taoist sect's rise. It needed tens of thousands of Taoist cultivators like Xiao Hua to stand out. Instead of leaving the blood steel as a burden to Beiguo Zhenming, it was better to leave the blood steel in the hearts of the cultivators of the 3 continents. It's exactly as Xian said. Xiao Hua's figure stopped in midair. He was about to take out the immortal emperor's decree when he thought to himself, the rise of Taoism can't be achieved by just relying on this Xiao and the fortune gate. Moreover, the current Grand Mist ancestor seems to be unreliable. This Xiao has to make more preparations before ascending. Before Xiao Hua could take out the immortal emperor's edict, a familiar gaze swept over from afar. Xiao Hua stopped in confusion and looked in the direction where the gaze came from. Not long after, Xian's graceful figure arrived on the clouds. Moreover, wasn't the person beside Xian the Baihan? Xian. When Xiao Hua saw Xian, he asked curiously, "Why are you here?" He. Xian covered her mouth and giggled, "I am afraid that you will kill all the Confucian cultivators in the Jade Rock Nation in a fit of anger. I specially came to persuade you." Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and replied, "Do you think I am the Grand Mist ancestor? Killing people for no reason?" Xian put down her hand and bowed towards Xiao Hua in a very serious manner, "I thank Taoist Xiao for letting those rash Confucian cultivators off." Xiao Hua pinched his chin and his eyes curved like the moon in the sky. With a deep smile, he replied in a helpless tone, "What can I do if I don't let them off? This Xiao is not only the Immortal Palace's Master Lei, but also the Immortal Palace's son-in-law in the future. How can this Xiao make things difficult for the princess's subordinates?" Contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, Xian's face only flushed red. She wasn't particularly shy. Instead, she glared at him and said, "It's good that you know. This is the disciple of the Confucian cultivators helping you grow. You are right to thank them." Ha! Xiao Hua laughed loudly and raised his hand to grab Xian's hand. He said with a smile, "This is the 9th princess's tone." Seeing Xiao Hua raise his hand, Baihan, who was at the side, already knew what to do and moved to the side. "Humph, you know it's the 9th princess, yet you still dare to touch her." Xian glanced at Baihan from the corner of his eyes. When she had already dodged, he pursed his lips and pinched Xiao Hua's hand. Although he said that, he didn't pull his hand out. "What are you doing here? Are you really afraid that I will lose my temper?" Xiao Hua held Xian's hand and asked again. "On one hand, yes." Xian nodded. "Your blood steel was destroyed by others. I was really afraid that you would be angry. After all, this is your face. Presumably, when the news of you reaching the Mahayana realm spread, those who destroyed the blood steel would be scared out of their wits. They would be afraid that you would come to their door. The so-called face is the respect from the hearts of others." Xiao Hua said with a smile, if you do well, you will naturally have face. How can a hypocritical flattery be considered face? That's your own idea. You have your own dignity, so you don't need to care about face. Xin said with a smile, but ordinary people live by face. I have destroyed the blood steel myself. Xiao Hua told the story. You can announce this to the world and let those cultivators rest assured. That's strange. Hearing this, Xin said with some surprise, Xiao Hua, you suddenly thought of coming to Seven Suns Temple. You have returned to the hidden immortal continent for a long time. This. Xiao Hua thought for a while and told him about Su Ji's request. He also told him about Su Ji's matter briefly. When Xin heard this, he frowned again. After thinking for a while, he said, Xiao Hua, at Dawn and Dusk Cliff, in Longevity Town, did the four great families and His Majesty ask about Senior Su? Xiao Hua understood. He nodded with a smile and said, no. So. Xin said with a bitter smile, His Majesty doesn't know that Senior Su and Senior Xingyu have already left the hidden immortal continent. The main purpose of this Jade Pool meeting is probably these two seniors from the immortal world. It is also because His Majesty knows about the existence of these two immortals that he didn't take the plague of strange insects seriously. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid that's the case. Xiao Hua secretly nodded and replied, but this is nothing. Let's just go and take a look. By the way, what else did you come here for? Nothing else. Xin smiled and hugged Xiao Hua's arm. He said, I just want to accompany you to the banquet at Lingyun Side Palace. Chapter 46-67. Oh. Didn't you say you weren't going? You said something about going against the rules, why are you thinking about it now? Xiao Hua was very surprised, but after a moment, he slapped his forehead and said, I understand, I'm afraid Empress Dowager missed you and issued an imperial decree. Hehe, Xiao Hua is indeed smart. Xin's other white finger tapped Xiao Hua's forehead and laughed. That's great. Xiao Hua said with a smile, with you accompanying me, I won't be afraid of getting lost. That's true. Hearing this, Xin also looked at Xiao Hua strangely. I've never seen a supreme being cultivator who could lose himself. You didn't before, but you do now. Xiao Hua replied with a smile, then turned around and asked Baihen, when did you return? Xiao Hua's question was extremely meaningless. Rather than saying it was a question, it was better to say it was to cover up the awkwardness of him and Xin being spied on by others. Baihen naturally didn't dare to be negligent, he hurriedly flew over and said, reporting to Sect Master, Disciple just returned and was kowtowing to Her Highness when Empress Dowager issued an imperial decree. Disciple originally didn't want to come, but Her Highness said Disciple had meritorious service, and Empress Dowager's imperial decree also mentioned Disciple, allowing Disciple to follow to Lingyun Side Palace. Alright, then come with us. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. Then, the two sweetly urged their figures and rushed into the 9 heavens. Baihen followed closely behind, flying towards the earth fire wind lightning. After flying for half an hour, astral winds appeared high in the sky. Xin stopped and pulled her arm out of Xiao Hua's and said with a smile, Xiao Hua, Lingyun Side Palace isn't within the Immortal Palace. I don't know where His Majesty has placed it, so I can only open His Majesty's Imperial Decree and Empress Dowager's Imperial Decree and let the patrol envoy lead the way. Oh. Lingyun Side Palace isn't within the Immortal Palace? Xiao Hua asked curiously, then why did His Majesty dare to invite the 4 great clans again? Xin explained, the Immortal Palace and Hidden Immortal Continent's time is different. A day in the Immortal Palace hides an immortal for a year. If His Majesty is in charge of the affairs in Lingyun Side Palace, how can he command the Immortal Palace troops to resist the strange insects? Of course, if it was an emergency, His Majesty had other ways to deal with it. However, there was no need to be so anxious this time. His Majesty might have used the celestial imperial artifact of the heavenly court to set up the Lingyun side palace outside the immortal palace. As long as the immortal imperial equipment is not too far away from the immortal palace, His Majesty's golden throne can still be activated. So that's how it is. Xiaohua nodded. The immortal palace really has a lot of secrets. If you hadn't told me, I really wouldn't have known. Your fortune gate has a lot of secrets. The corners of Xian's mouth curled up, and she said with a smile, I've heard that there are stories about the 10 elders of the sect. I've been counting them, but I still don't know who they are. Do you want to know? Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said eloquently, if you want to know, just say it. If you don't say it, how would I know you want to know? Although you look at me with sincerity, you still have to tell me what you want to know. Do you really want to know? Then let me tell you. Do you really want to know? Don't tell me you really want to know. Xian was stunned when she heard this, and then she laughed until she swayed back and forth. When tears came out of her eyes, she only said one word, no. Beside her, Baipan also laughed when she heard this, but she didn't dare to be rude like Xian. She covered her mouth and stomach, holding it in really hard. Alright, since you don't want to know, then I don't need to tell you. Xiaohua shrugged, and replied somewhat innocently, you said you don't want to know, it's not that I don't want to tell you. Xiao Lang, do you need to eat a spirit fruit to moisten your throat? As Xian said this, she also pretended to take out a red spirit fruit from her Qinkuan bag and handed it to Xiaohua. That. Xiaohua didn't look at the spirit fruit, but looked at Xian's red lips. He swallowed his saliva and said in a low voice, I should moisten my throat. Humph, don't you dare. Xian curled her lips and said, don't even think about it now. As she said this, Xian stuffed the spirit fruit into Xiaohua's mouth, and without waiting for Xiaohua to do anything, she raised her hand, and a ball of multicolored light appeared from her hand. Within the multicolored light, a brocade that was several feet in size appeared. This brocade was gold in color, and a lifelike phoenix was embroidered on it. Around the phoenix were many armor inscriptions, and these armor inscriptions were like 100 birds flying around the phoenix. A moment later, a faintly discernible cry sounded from the brocade, and the phoenix flapped its wings and flew out from the multicolored light. Boom boom boom. Hundreds of vast chi pillars appeared from the void and fell into the phoenix's illusory figure. Although the vast chi pillars were only the size of a thumb, in a few breaths, the phoenix grew to about 100 feet in size. As the phoenix spread its wings, the illusory figure crashed into the earth, fire, wind, and lightning and disappeared. Interesting. Xiaohua faintly smiled and also took out a golden brocade from his bosom. This brocade's luster and multicolored light was no different from a new one. However, a dragon shape rushed out from it. This dragon shape was different from a real dragon. There were no dragon scales on its body, only an extremely large amount of inscriptions flowing within the dragon shape. Moreover, around the dragon shape, there were also images of hundreds of beasts prostrating themselves on the ground and worshipping it. Roar. The dragon shape roared several times, and crashed into the earth, fire, wind, and lightning. Unlike the phoenix, after the dragon shape passed, the earth, fire, wind, and lightning didn't close. Instead, a colorful passage that looked like a dragon pattern appeared, and a whistling wind blew out from this passage. Darling Xiao. Seeing the passage appear, Xian hurriedly whispered, where are the Thunder Immortal and the Celestial Being? If possible, please ask them to show themselves first, and wait until we reach the Lingyun side palace to let them come out. It's not very polite. Moreover, it's not very respectful to them. You're right, we should do that. Xiaohua nodded in agreement, and took out the Kunlun mirror. Under the light, Thunder Immortal and the Celestial Being flew out, and after greeting Xian, they stood in midair. Oh right. Thunder Immortal looked at Xian and asked, Princess Xian, I have a question to ask. Immortal, please ask. Xian hurriedly asked. Is the Jade Pool in the Lingyun Side Palace? Thunder Immortal asked, I know that we are going to the Lingyun Side Palace, but I didn't know that we have to participate in the Jade Pool gathering, so I asked. Oh, it's like this. Xian smiled and explained, the Jade Pool is different from the Jade Mountain. The Jade Pool is an immortal imperial equipment of Empress Dowager, and after it is activated, it will reveal a strange realm of the heavenly court. The scenery in this strange realm is extremely beautiful, and rarely seen in the world. Therefore, if there is an important banquet that requires Empress Dowager to appear, Empress Dowager will use the Jade Pool to entertain guests. As time passed, it became known as the Jade Pool Gathering. His Majesty is currently in the Lingyun Side Palace, so as long as Empress Dowager shows the Jade Pool in the Lingyun Side Palace, wouldn't it be the Jade Pool Gathering? Oh, I see. The celestial being curled his lips and shouted, isn't this the so-called inviting the monarch into a trap? His Majesty and Empress Dowager are the leaders of Confucian cultivators, so they definitely wouldn't do this. Xian pursed her lips and smiled. In just a few minutes, the sound of gongs and drums came from the passageway, and then a group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals flew out from the passageway. After flying out, they didn't go forward, but lined up in front of the passageway, and the one who flew out behind them was actually Tai-Bai Jinxing. Xian had already pulled her hand out of Xiao Hua's palm, and now seeing Tai-Bai Jinxing fly out, she was slightly surprised. After she whispered a few words to Xiao Hua, Tai-Bai Jinxing had already flown to Xiao Hua. Tai-Bai Jinxing swung his horsetail whisk, cupped his hands and saluted, Greetings, Master Xiao Lei. Greetings, Thunderbolt Immortal and Senior Celestial Being. Xiao Hua and the others didn't dare to be negligent, and hurriedly went forward to return the salute. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Tai-Bai Jinxing raised his head with a smile and looked at Xian, but he didn't go forward. Instead, he said, Earlier, I left in a hurry at Longevity Town, so I didn't have time to congratulate the 9th princess. Today, I have the important task of welcoming Master Xiao Lei, so it's inconvenient for me to greet you. When the 9th princess's big day comes, I'll prepare a big gift to congratulate the 9th princess. Lord Tai-Bai Jinxing, you're too polite. Xian replied with a smile, you're an important minister of the Immortal Palace, so there's no need for formalities. When the time comes, you'll just have to be there to congratulate me. Boom boom. While the two were talking, the earth, fire, wind, and thunder palace to their left let out another roaring sound. A cloud flew down like a waterfall, and a flying phoenix palanquin surrounded by dozens of women in palace attire flew out from the cloud. Seeing the flying phoenix palanquin appear, Xian and Bai En's eyes were filled with surprise, and they looked at each other. Greetings, 9th princess. The dozens of women flew in front of Xian, and all of them knelt on the cloud, and said in unison. Xian waved her hand, and said indifferently, You may rise. Yes, Your Highness. The group of women stood up, and shouted again, Your Highness, please get on the palanquin. All right. Xian nodded thoughtfully, and then said to Xiao Hua, I'll take my leave first. See you at the Lingyun Side Palace. Farewell, 9th princess. Xiao Hua said with a smile, and cupped his hands. You may rise. Xian covered her mouth and smiled, and her figure landed on the flying phoenix palanquin. Bai En also hurriedly flew to the side of the flying phoenix palanquin. A group of palace maids lifted the palanquin, and the cloud under their feet flew backward into the earth, fire, wind, and thunder palace. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals at the side also bowed, and there was no lack of etiquette. After Xian and the others disappeared into the earth, fire, wind, and thunder palace, Tai-Bai Jinxing said with a smile, Master Xiao Lei, please don't blame us. This is the etiquette of our Confucian cultivators. With the 9th princess here, we need to send her back to the palace first. Don't blame us, don't blame us. Xiao Hua saw that Xian was valued by the immortal palace, so how could he blame her, and replied with a wave of his hand. After waiting for a while, Taibai Jinxing waved his horsetail whisk, and shouted, "Bring the immortal palace's heavenly horses over." "Yes, my lord." The group of immortal soldiers replied, and brought over 3 heavenly horses from not far away. The heavenly horses were more than 100 feet long, and their bodies emitted a milky white brilliance. Within the brilliance, countless strands of noble qi condensed into the shape of strips and danced like little snakes. Under the heavenly horses, lily-like clouds quietly bloomed as the horses' hooves landed. When the 3 heavenly horses flew in front of Xiao Hua and the others, Taibai Jinxing raised his hand with a smile, and said, "Master Xiao Lei, Thunder Immortal, immortal friend heavenly man, please." "Thank you, immortal friend." Xiao Hua knew that this was the immortal palace's etiquette, and no longer modestly declined, he raised his hand to signal, and floated onto a heavenly horse. Soon after, Thunder Immortal and Heavenly Man also each landed on a heavenly horse. Return to the Lingyun side palace. Taibai Jinxing stepped on a cloud, and flew to the side of Xiao Hua and the others, and ordered. "Yes, my lord." Following the group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals' reply, everyone urged their figures to enter the passage. When the last immortal soldier's figure disappeared, the entire passage slowly shrunk, and disappeared in a moment. The passage with dragon patterns seemed to be very long. Xiao Hua rode on the heavenly horse, and looked at the layers of earth, fire, wind, and lightning rushing behind him like flowing water, and couldn't help but be somewhat stunned. After a full meal's worth of time, layers of multicolored light appeared in front of the passage, and it was obvious that they had already reached the end. Xiao Hua looked at Taibai Jinxing, and said in a low voice, "Immortal friend, previously when I took out His Majesty's imperial edict, it seemed that in less than half a cup of tea's time, immortal friend appeared, could it be that immortal friend didn't come from the Lingyun side palace?" Taibai Jinxing said with a smile, "Of course. Master Xiao Hua is the distinguished guest of this Jade Pool meeting. This old man has already been waiting in the nearby earth, fire, wind, and lightning. I'll have to trouble you, immortal friend." Xiao Hua somewhat bitterly smiled, and cupped his hands. "It's nothing, this old man's mission this time is to invite Master Xiao Hua to the Lingyun side palace, waiting for a moment. Is really nothing." Taibai Jinxing didn't hide his attitude, and reminded, "I only hope that Master Xiao Hua can place the stability of the world as the most important thing, and make a good choice. And, rest assured, immortal friend." Xiao Hua understood Taibai Jinxing's meaning, and replied, "Perhaps His Majesty is wrong in many ways, but if he thinks about the common people of the world, this Xiao won't oppose him. Then this old man can rest assured." Taibai Jinxing smiled and nodded. As the heavenly horse flew out of the passage, Xiao Hua's eyes unconsciously lit up. He saw that this was a huge space, and when he scanned it with his divine sense, he actually couldn't see the end of it. The entire space was surrounded by a starry sky, and in the center of the space, there was a huge palace towering majestically. At this moment, the style of this palace wasn't very clear, and Xiao Hua could only see that around the palace, there were millions of vast qi pillars rushing in from the starry sky, entering the space. When these vast qi neared the palace, they turned into multicolored clouds, and these clouds condensed together, and like a huge dragon, they rushed into the palace with a roar. That huge palace emitted a glaring brilliance, illuminating the entire space. Along with the brilliance filling the entire space, there was also a mighty insurging aura. Everyone who entered the space couldn't help but have a kind of longing in their heart, and even a kind of desire to worship. His Majesty is really generous. Xiao Hua looked at the palace, then retracted his gaze, and said to Taibai Jinxing. Taibai Jinxing slightly smiled, and replied, this Jade Pool meeting is the gathering of the supreme experts of the three continents, Thunder Temple, Great Sage Hall, and Dragon Island are all present. How could His Majesty be negligent? Oh! Dragon Island is also coming to the Dragon Clan. Is it the Great Elder, or the Second Elder? Xiao Hua asked with a little surprise. Taibai Jinxing thought for a moment, then replied, this old man doesn't dare to make wild guesses. Previously, the Great Elder came, and the Second Elder also came. Xiao Hua knew that Taibai Jinxing had been waiting in the Earth Fire Wind Lightning Palace all along, and presumably, he didn't know who would come to the Immortal Palace, so he didn't ask anymore. The Pegasus flew for another half a cup of tea's time, and that huge palace was finally near. Only now did Xiao Hua see it clearly. This was an incomparably huge palace, like a lofty mountain. What welcomed Xiao Hua was a huge palace door, and at this moment, the palace door was tightly shut, and above the palace door was a vermilion red. When one's gaze fell on this vermilion red, a boundless and imposing aura was emitted from within, and could instantly drown one's gaze. Within the vermilion red that was like a vast ocean, there were 81 golden stars nailed within. These stars were arranged neatly, and looked like a decoration, but between the stars, cryptic fluctuations were faintly revealed. It was clearly a mysterious defensive formation. Above the door of the palace, there was another 9-colored ray of light. Above the ray of light, there were several flamboyant words, Lingyun Side Palace. Waves of human race's destiny turned into dragons and phoenixes, wantonly swimming around these 4 large words. Xiao Hua's gaze moved away from the palace door, and landed on the immortal soldiers and generals standing neatly outside the palace door. These immortal generals were all 7th or 8th grade origin energy, and each of them was wearing armor and holding weapons in their hands. An indescribable solemn and murderous aura was emitted from their bodies, enveloping the entire palace door. Looking at these, Xiao Hua sighed. The Immortal Palace's foundation is really hard to find in this world. Just the Lingyun Side Palace alone is already so impressive. I'm afraid that my fortune gate won't be able to catch up in a short time. Just as he was thinking, those immortal soldiers and generals standing neatly suddenly became chaotic, and some immortal generals hurriedly flew to the side of the palace door. When Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, he immediately showed a kind of surprise, and he looked at Taibai Jinxing with some confusion, while Taibai Jinxing's brows were tightly knitted, and he also looked in that direction. Io, Daoist Xiao is here. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and the Grand Mist Ancestor's voice sounded as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. Quickly move aside, this old man wants to participate in the Jade Lake gathering with Daoist Xiao. Cough cough. Seeing this, Taibai Jinxing coughed twice, and ordered, you all move aside. Yes, Lord. The group of immortal soldiers holding weapons surrounding the Grand Mist Ancestor all moved aside, but they still surrounded the Grand Mist Ancestor with caution. Seeing that the immortal soldiers and generals had moved aside, the Grand Mist Ancestor sneered several times, and flew in front of Xiao Hua with Anya Z and Daoist Rider Crane. He raised his hand and saluted, Daoist Xiao, this time, the alien insects are very powerful. This old man also burned with anxiety when I received the news, and wanted to come up with a plan for the survival of the human race in the 3 mainlands. But when this old man heard that the Immortal Palace was holding the Jade Lake gathering here, they didn't invite this old man. Although this old man's sky-bearing palace has just been built, it is still a part of the Dao Gate strength, so this old man chased here, wanting to work together with Daoist Xiao for the sake of the Dao Gate. However, the Immortal Palace bullied the Dao Gate's weak strength, and actually didn't allow this old man to enter the Lingyun Side Palace. Daoist Xiao, this old man's heart can be seen by the heaven and earth. You must make the decision for the Dao Gate. Looking at the Grand Mist Ancestor's serious appearance, Xiao Hua sneered in his heart. Although he didn't like to fight and scheme, he also didn't like to be used as a stepping stone by others. After patiently waiting for the Grand Mist Ancestor to finish speaking, he indifferently replied, Fellow Daoist Grand Mist, the Jade Lake Gathering is a banquet organized by Immortal Emperor Go Chen. who he invites and who he doesn't invite, this Xiao can't decide. Moreover, whether or not to participate in the Jade Lake gathering, whether or not you have the strength to fight the alien insects, it has nothing to do with your own strength, whether you look down on the Tao Gate or not. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, the Grand Mist Ancestor said with a surprised expression, "You. Are you Taoist Xiao? Could it be that you've forgotten? You once erected a blood stele in the Seven Suns Temple. The world's Tao Gate is declining early, the hidden immortal Tao Gate is opening today, with me, Xiao Hua, in this world, who dares to bully and humiliate disciples." These words are known to all Tao Gate cultivators. Did you forget Taoist Xiao's order? Hearing these words, Xiao Hua's expression became even colder. He indifferently replied, "This Xiao naturally remembers the words that this Xiao said. However, this Xiao has already destroyed the blood stele. This Xiao Hua wants to carve these words into the hearts of every cultivator." You. The Grand Mist Ancestor was truly shocked. He didn't expect Xiao Hua to actually destroy the blood stele. He was speechless for a moment. At this time, Xiao Hua opened his mouth again. "However, since you said that you're a Tao Gate cultivator, this Xiao will ask for you." Finished speaking, Xiao Hua turned his head and asked Taibai Jinxing, "Fellow Taoist, I wonder if His Majesty has any special criteria for inviting people. After all, fellow Taoist Grand Mist is also a member of our Tao Gate. He's willing to cooperate with the Immortal Palace to fight against the strange insects. His Majesty shouldn't reject him, right?" Taibai Jinxing was slightly stunned, then as if he thought of something, a smile appeared on his face. He said, "Master Xiao Lei, His Majesty invited Empress to hold the Jade Pool meeting in the Lingyun Side Hall this time. It's naturally different from before. Because this time, the main focus is to fight against the strange insects, the divine ability of an ordinary cultivator. In front of the billions of strange insects, is already insignificant. Therefore, this old servant heard from His Majesty that the people invited by His Majesty not only have to be the top experts of the 3 continents, but also supreme experts. In other words, the supreme experts of various sects. The so-called supremacy of a supreme being referred to an expert who was respected by the masses. In other words, the experts of the top forces in the 3 continents and 4 seas. As for the various sects, naturally, they are the Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sect, Tao Gate, Demon race, and Dragon race. At this point, Taibai Jinxing's gaze swept over the Emperor's robe on Grand Mist Ancestor's body, then landed on Grand Mist Ancestor's face, and he said with a smile, "The elders of the Dragon Island control the Dragon Island, and even the Dragon Palaces of the 3 seas have to listen to their orders. They are qualified to participate in this Jade Pool meeting. The Thunder Temple's 3 Buddhist lords control the past, present, and future of the Buddhist sect, and the billions of Buddhist disciples in the Pure Land world listen to them. They are qualified to participate in this Jade Pool meeting. The Great Sage Temple's 7 great sages control the 1,000 demons holy realm and millions of demon holy realm. No demon dares to disobey their orders. They are qualified to participate in this Jade Pool meeting. Taoist Xiao Hua, Taoist Xiao, Lightning Taoist, and Senior Celestial Being are in charge of the Fortune Gate, and their millions of disciples have shaken the 3 continents. Wherever the Iron Blood battle team passes, the 4 aristocratic families are defeated, the 1,000 demons holy realm, and even the dragon palaces of the 4 seas have to retreat. Fellow Taoist Grand Mist, what about you? Your sky-bearing palace. Although this old man has heard of its name, I have never heard of its scale or the strength of its disciples. Even more so, I don't know what role the sky-bearing palace can play in resisting the alien insects. You. What qualifications do you have to participate? Although venerable realm experts can wear emperor's robes, those who can wear emperor's robes are not necessarily venerable realm experts. Taibai Jinxing didn't leave any face for the Grand Mist Ancestor. He was very different from the Longevity Town. In Taibai Jinxing's eyes, rather than calling Xiao Hua the Fortune Gate's sect master, it would be better to call him the Immortal Palace's Lightning Master. Rather than calling him the Immortal Palace's lightning master, it would be better to call him the Immortal Palace's son-in-law. The conversation between Xian and Xiaohua outside the Earth Fire Wind Lightning Gate had made Taibai Jinxing feel closer to Xiaohua. The Grand Mist Ancestor's face turned ugly, but it only lasted for a moment. He looked at Xiaohua and said word by word, "Daoist Xiao, you heard Taibai Jinxing's words. He said that this old man doesn't have the qualifications to participate in the Jade Lake Gathering. This is not a reason, this is clearly an excuse. They don't dare to let this old man participate in the Jade Lake Gathering. Daoist Xiao, this old man hasn't known you for a long time, but I'm sure you've heard of this old man's name on the hidden immortal continent. Long before this old man was suppressed, this old man has been fighting for the rise of my Dao Gate. The things I've done before are too many to count. Although this old man didn't erect the blood steel, this old man has also wreaked havoc in the Immortal Palace and killed countless immortal soldiers and immortal generals. After this old man escaped, this old man saw the struggle of the Dao Gate's younger generation and saw Daoist Zhao's efforts. Therefore, this old man used Daoist Zhao's deeds to motivate himself. Now, this old man's cultivation may not be as high as Daoist Zhao's, and my sky-bearing palace may not be as strong as the Fortune Gate, but this old man is also a member of the Dao Gate, a member of the three mainlands human race. The rise and fall of a country is everyone's responsibility, so why can't this old man contribute to the survival of the three mainlands? This old man earnestly requests Daoist Xiao that the Dao Gate is a family, so don't put the differences between the sects in your eyes. Just treat this old man as a member of the Dao Gate and allow this old man to follow Daoist Xiao to participate in the Jade Lake Gathering. Listening to the Grand Mist Ancestor's dignified words, if Xiaohua didn't know about Prince Lan's matter, he might have softened his heart and agreed. Unfortunately, Xiaohua had seen through the Grand Mist Ancestor's ruthless side and knew that what he said was completely different from what he thought in his heart. Therefore, he pondered for a moment and nodded, Daoist Grand Mist Ancestor is right. You're a member of my Dao Gate, and like this old man, you're also working hard for the rise of my Dao Gate. This Jade Lake Gathering is very important to my Dao Gate, so this old man must abandon all prejudices and scruples, and be honest with Daoist Grand Mist Ancestor and participate in the Jade Lake Gathering with Daoist Grand Mist Ancestor. Good. The Grand Mist Ancestor clapped his hands and said, Daoist Xiao is right. You and I are both members of the Dao Gate, so how can we separate ourselves? Good. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, since Daoist Grand Mist Ancestor agrees with this old man, then. Daoist Grand Mist Ancestor, please tell this old man where the Sky-Bearing Hall is, how many disciples there are in the Sky-Bearing Hall, and how many experts like Daoist Rider Crane and Inyezi there are. Don't worry, this old man will definitely not tell a single word to the Immortal Palace. Ah. The Grand Mist Ancestor was originally happy, but when he heard Xiaohua's words, he was stunned. Xiaohua ignored the Grand Mist Ancestor and turned to Taibai Jinxing, Daoist friend, you must have information about my Fortune Gate, right? A smile appeared on Taibai Jinxing's face as he nodded and said, of course, the Fortune Gate is like the sun in the sky, how can my immortal palace not have information about the Fortune Gate? As he said that, Taibai Jinxing took out a jade eye ring and handed it over to Xiaohua. After Xiaohua received the jade eye ring, he activated the eye clear technique and passed it to the Grand Mist Ancestor, saying, this is all the information about my Fortune Gate, please keep it well. The Grand Mist Ancestor was flustered and exasperated. He had Prince Lan as his spy, so he knew more than the Immortal Palace. How could he put Taibai Jinxing's jade eye ring in his eyes? Moreover, he also knew that once he accepted this jade eyes, which was even more useless than a chicken rib, he would have to tell Xiaohua everything about the Sky-Bearing Palace Hall. Of course, he could hide it, but if he hid too much, Xiaohua was not a fool. How could he believe him? Seeing that the Grand Mist Ancestor did not accept the jade eye ring, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, What's going on? Daoist Grand Mist Ancestor, didn't you say that you wanted to be honest with me? This is information about my fortune gate, does Daoist friend not need it? The Grand Mist Ancestor remained silent, and Daoist Rider Crane couldn't help but ask, Daoist Xiao, what do you mean by this? Could it be that you don't trust my sky-bearing hull? Shut up. Before Xiao Hua could say anything, the lightning Daoist roared, who do you think you are? Is there a place for you to speak? My sect master gave all the information about the fortune gate to your sky-bearing hull because he doesn't trust you. First Elder Sect Master. Not to mention Daoist Rider Crane, even Tai Bai Jinxing was stunned. Even Grand Mist Ancestor was shocked. His heart, which had been struggling to make a decision, finally made a decision. Besides, who the hell do you think you are? I've never seen you before, so why should I trust you? The lightning Daoist didn't give Daoist Rider Crane any face, and he sneered, if you want my fortune gate to protect you, you can join my fortune gate. Using a dog fart sky-bearing hull to fool people, do you think I'm a fool? Hee hee. The Grand Mist Ancestor chuckled, and he looked at the lightning Daoist and asked, if Daoist Xiao is the fortune gate's sect master, then I presume the lightning Daoist is the second sect master. What's wrong? I'm the second sect master. With my strength, can't I be the second sect master? The lightning Daoist glanced at the Grand Mist Ancestor and replied arrogantly. Hearing the lightning Daoist's words, the Grand Mist Ancestor sneered in his heart. He already understood why Xiao Hua called himself the sect master. Wasn't he trying to unify the three mainlands? The Grand Mist Ancestor had carefully studied Xiao Hua's actions, and he had come to a conclusion. Xiao Hua was a rare Dao sect cultivator, but he was definitely not a qualified Dao sect leader. Not to mention that he was indecisive and didn't know how to win over people's hearts, just the fact that he couldn't kill decisively meant that he couldn't be compared to him. The Longevity Town. Rather than saying that the Grand Mist Ancestor was using Xiao Hua's indecisiveness to barge into the three mainland supreme experts, it was more accurate to say that he was taking a risk to test Xiao Hua. The Grand Mist Ancestor knew that if he was in Xiao Hua's shoes, he definitely wouldn't allow two Dao Gates voices to exist in the Longevity Town. But the result was exactly the same as the Grand Mist Ancestor's expectations. Xiao Hua had indeed allowed him to speak, and he had even allowed him to say a lot of things that were disgraceful to Xiao Hua. The most important thing was that Xiao Hua didn't make a move against him. As for the Jade Lakes gathering, the Grand Mist Ancestor understood it better than Xiao Hua. This was the best opportunity for him and his sky-bearing hull to stand out. He didn't receive the Immortal Palace's invitation, so he didn't have the opportunity to participate. But he didn't go to the Fortune Gate to discuss with Xiao Hua. Instead, he went to the Soaring Cloud Side Hall's entrance to block Xiao Hua's way and force him to agree. Of course, the consequences of forcing Xiao Hua to agree, as well as other possible scenarios, were already in his mind. Bringing out the sky-bearing hull structure, disciples, and so on was also within his expectations. Now that he heard the lightning Daoist reveal that Xiao Hua was the Fortune Gate's first master, the Grand Mist Ancestor felt a sense of crisis. He knew that if he couldn't enter the Jade Lakes gathering today, he wouldn't be able to occupy a position among the four superpowers. He was afraid that he wouldn't have the chance to compete with Xiao Hua in the future. So, while his mind was spinning, the Grand Mist Ancestor opened his mouth again. He looked at the celestial being and laughed, so, fellow celestial being is the third master. What does it have to do with you whether I am the third master or the eighth master? The celestial being coldly replied, completely ignoring the Grand Mist Ancestor. Hee hee. The Grand Mist Ancestor didn't take the celestial being's eighth master seriously. He laughed and received Xiao Hua's jade eye. Then, he took out a jade eye and handed it to Xiao Hua. Daoist Xiao, this is something this old man specially prepared for Daoist. Daoist will know when he sees it. Oh. Is that so? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and laughed. People often say that a wise man submits to circumstances. Fellow Taoist Grand Mist is indeed an ambitious and ruthless person. How could the Grand Mist ancestor not understand Xiao Hua's sarcasm? However, this sarcasm was too far away from his grand plan. How could he care about it? Xiao Hua took the jade eye and looked at it. His expression changed slightly, and then he looked at the Grand Mist ancestor from head to toe. He said indifferently, this Xiao really didn't expect fellow Taoist to have such great strength. If that's the case, can the Fortune Gate and Sky-Bearing Palace form an alliance? The Grand Mist ancestor raised his hand and looked at Xiao Hua with a smile. He had taken out his biggest trump card, and he didn't think that Xiao Hua would refuse. Alliance? Who knew that Xiao Hua looked at the Grand Mist ancestor's hand in a daze and asked curiously, you and I are both from the same sect, and we are brothers. Has fellow Taoist ever seen brothers form an alliance? The Grand Mist ancestor was extremely embarrassed, and he didn't know how to answer. The 3 continents are so big, and there are only 2 sects, the Fortune Gate and the Sky-Bearing Palace. There is no need to form an alliance. Xiao Hua laughed and said, what this Xiao means is, since fellow Taoist wants to participate in the Jade Lake meeting, does fellow Taoist want to join under the Fortune Gate, or participate under the Sky-Bearing Palace's name? If you want to use the Sky-Bearing Palace's name, there is no harm in giving this jade eye to the Immortal Palace. Various forces are needed to resist the alien insects, and I think the Immortal Emperor will definitely want the Sky-Bearing Palace to become a force and ally with the Immortal Palace to resist the foreign enemies. Fuck, who said that this Xiao Hua is too honest and doesn't know how to be flexible? The Grand Mist ancestor gritted his teeth so hard that his teeth were about to shatter. This bastard just looked at the jade pupils, and threw his words to the side. He even wants to pull this old man's Sky-Bearing Hall to his Fortune Gate, his appetite is really big. Isn't he afraid of dying from overeating? Humph, this old man won't let you have your way. This old man would rather ally with the Immortal Palace than to join the Fortune Gate. At this time, the Grand Mist ancestor seemed to have forgotten that he was the one who said to Xiao Hua that all the sects under the heavens were one family. Of course, the Grand Mist ancestor couldn't reveal his thoughts. After pondering for a while, he said in a dignified tone, Taoist Xiao is right. The Fortune Gate already has 3 masters, and even if this old man goes to the Fortune Gate, this old man won't be able to help much. This old man's Sky-Bearing Palace should participate in the Jade Lake meeting as an independent sect. And, since fellow Taoist has made a decision, then it's easy to handle. Xiao Hua smiled faintly when he saw the Grand Mist ancestor's hand reaching into his chest as if he was about to take out another jade eye. Xiao Hua raised his hand and passed the jade eye to Tai-Bai Jinxing as he said, it's not good for this Xiao to take out the Sky-Bearing Palace's jade eye again. Why don't you pass it to the Immortal Palace? Seeing that Xiao Hua had casually tossed the jade eye pearl to Tai-Bai Jinxing as if he was tossing a blade of grass, the Grand Mist ancestor felt even more embarrassed and angry. Chapter 46-68. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Tai-Bai Jinxing wasn't the only one who was surprised. Even the Grand Mist ancestor's eyes flashed with extreme jealousy. He cursed in his heart, how can an invited guest rush to greet someone before the Immortal Emperor? If the Dragon Island didn't value Xiao Hua, why would the second elder of the Dragon Island personally appear? Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao. A golden light flashed behind Aoe as the golden-winged Peng flew out and laughed. There was another giant dragon beside him. Wasn't that the profound armored pentahorn dragon? Even though the pentahorn dragon had a trace of disdain on his face, he didn't hesitate and said, the famous Dragon Master Xiao is actually like this. This saint has long heard about it, but after seeing it today, I'm still in awe of Dragon Master's temperament. Damn it, isn't it just the West Sea Dragon Palace? Xiao Hua wasn't surprised when the golden-winged Peng came out. However, when he saw Aoe and the pentahorn dragon, he immediately understood that Jiang Hong's killing of the West Sea had attracted the attention of the Dragon Island. As expected, the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, Ao Qian, appeared behind the profound armored pentahorn dragon. However, Ao Qian bowed and said, "Greetings, Dragon Master Shao. I didn't know that the Buddha of Xuanji Mausoleum was actually your nephew. I apologize for my lack of manners." After Ao Feng obtained the scriptures from the Nirvana paradise, he mentioned to me many times how the Buddha of Xuanji Mausoleum had taken care of him along the way. This humble Taoist greets fellow immortals. Xiao Hua naturally couldn't greet them when others were so courteous. He hurriedly flew down from the Pegasus and stood in front of the soaring cloud side hall's door before bowing to return the greeting. Xiao Hua didn't activate his transcendence golden body, which was the figure of an ordinary human. He stood there respectfully, but the second elder of the Dragon Island, the two great sages of the Great Sage Hall, and the East Sea Dragon Palace Lord didn't dare to disrespect him. The four demons hurriedly used their techniques and transformed into human form. They smiled and said, "Dragon Master Shao, you're too polite." Master Shao Lei. Right after Xiao Hua finished greeting the dragons and demons, Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't miss the opportunity to appear. He smiled and said, "After hearing Master Shao Lei's name, the second elder of Dragon Island was even more anxious than me. He actually came to greet you before me. I really don't know who the real host is. Your Majesty is wrong." When Xiao Hua saw that Immortal Emperor Gaochen had personally come out, he understood that Immortal Emperor Gaochen was attracted by the title of Fortune Gate's third master. Therefore, he smiled and bowed respectfully. "This humble servant is a human, and is also the lightning master of the Immortal Palace. This humble servant can be considered half a host, so." At this point, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He realized that his words were ambiguous and wanted to think of an explanation. After Immortal Emperor Go Chen, Dongfang Qianghao also smiled and said, "Master Shao Lei is also wrong. If we're talking about half a host, this old man can barely be considered half a host. You can only be considered half a host." He. Xiao Hua was secretly happy. Dongfang Qianghao's words made Immortal Emperor Go Chen even more sleepless, so he didn't say anything else. He just casually replied, "That's right, that's right. This Xiao has always been afraid of making a fool of himself in this kind of situation. I only said one sentence and immortal friend Dongfang exposed me. Dongfang Qianghao smiled and said, "That's even better." At the Jade Lake banquet, Empress Dowager Celestial Palace's immortal peaches and immortal palace's wine are plentiful. Master Shao can punish himself. Troublesome, troublesome. Xiao Hua patted his forehead in distress. This Xiao is most afraid of wine. If you want to enter the school of the Emperor Star, how can you not have a good alcohol tolerance? The golden-winged Great Peng laughed and said, Come, let's have a drinking competition with this sage." The group of venerable realm experts laughed and invited Immortal Emperor Go Chen to go first. Xiao Hua, Thunderbolt Immortal, and the heavenly being stood in the middle. The Dragon Island's second elder and the others followed behind and entered the Lingyun side hall. Taibai Jinxing looked at the Grand Mist Ancestor in the distance and sneered. He naturally didn't dare to enter the Lingyun side hall through the main door. After the main door was closed, he flew through the side door. As for when he could deliver the Grand Mist Ancestor's Jade Eye and report the Grand Mist Ancestor's intention, it depended on his mood. Damn it! The Grand Mist Ancestor naturally saw all of this, and his anger was unprecedentedly strong. In his heart, he knew that the other forces might not put the Fortune Gate in their eyes. However, the 3 continents and the 4 seas needed a force that could benefit from both sides to keep each other in check. If Xiao Hua's rise wasn't too lucky, if Xiao Hua's Fortune Gate wasn't 100 years earlier than his sky-bearing palace, all the glory in front of him would belong to him and not Xiao Hua. Lord Sect Master. Taoist Rider Crane was very quick-witted. Seeing the Grand Mist Ancestor's uncertain expression, He hurriedly whispered, according to this subordinate's knowledge, no matter how many times the Jade Lake gathering has been held, it seems. There has never been such a reception. The Great Sage Hall, Dragon Island, and Immortal Palace have given Xiaohua too much glory. In this subordinate's opinion, the peak of prosperity is bound to decline. I'm afraid there are many hidden dangers behind this glory. Taoist Rider Crane's Lord Sect Master made the Grand Mist Ancestor's heart itch. He smiled and nodded, your opinion is exactly what I think. Xiaohua is just a Tao Gates child. How would he know how to strategize? Didn't you see that he actually destroyed his own blood steel? Isn't this giving others a reason to criticize him? A person who goes back on his words. It's only because of the current situation of the 3 continents that he can be so arrogant. AI, the times make heroes, in terms of luck. I'm still half a step behind Xiaohua. Lord Sect Master's luck is about the same. Taoist Rider Crane laughed. At this time, being praised by everyone is like being roasted on a fire. When it's time to make the real arrangements, only then will the cultivation base be tested. In this subordinate's opinion, Lord Sect Master's magic power is divine and can control yin and yang. Lord Sect Master is the one with the real good luck. Humph, good luck is just a facade. The Grand Mist Ancestor coldly snorted. His gaze swept over the tightly shut door of the soaring cloud side hall, and he transmitted, all kinds of luck are like paper and silk in front of a plan. Before everything is revealed, everything is like the moon in the water. In the end, Xiaohua will know that everything he did is just to pave the way for me. Everything he has is mine. This subordinate has this confidence. Taoist Rider Crane's eyes narrowed. He also looked at the soaring cloud side hall and replied, only your majesty is the master of this palace. Only your majesty is qualified to be the Tao Gates. Lord Sect Master. Not to mention that the Grand Mist Ancestor and Taoist Rider Crane were flattering each other in front of the soaring cloud side hall. On the other side of the soaring cloud side hall, there was a similar door. Moreover, this door was also vermilion red. However, this door was decorated with 36 golden stars. This door was also tightly shut. Moreover, there was no plaque on it. Hundreds of armored female generals stood guard in front of the door. Boom! There was a roar high in the sky, and a 5-colored spot of light was born in the starry sky. The spot of light shook the void and streaked across the sky. Behind the spot of light, clouds like a bridge of clouds surged out from the vibrating space and covered the horizon. The female generals guarding the door tensed up. Among them, 10 of them moved and landed on the bridge of clouds. The leader's eyes flashed with a clear light as she looked at the other side of the bridge of clouds. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, dozens of female officials dressed in palace attire flew over with 2 imperial canopies. At this time, the 2 imperial canopies were not covered by the multicolored light, revealing the 2 charming princesses inside. 2 of the princesses looked very similar, but their expressions and temperaments were completely different. One had a cold expression with bright eyes that emitted a murderous aura. The female officials near the canopy lowered their heads and didn't dare to come closer. Wasn't this the 5th princess of the immortal emperor, Qingqing? The other one had a sorrowful expression and looked around with a pitiful expression. This was the 6th princess of the bright jade palace, Miao Miao. At this time, there was a faint blue and white mark on her forehead. This mark was in the shape of a thunderbolt with faint flashes of lightning inside. Whenever lightning flashed, the princess would frown. She couldn't help but cover her chest. Then, strands of 5-colored light rushed out from her chest. This 5-colored light traveled up her jade-white neck to her forehead and entered the blue and white mark. Your Highness. The one guarding the canopy was naturally Yu Xiaojing. She saw the princess's frown and quickly asked, Your Highness. If you can't hold on, how about you let Princess Miao Miao see the Empress and ask for leave on her behalf? We'll return to the Jasper Flower Palace right now. Humph, we're already in front of the Lingyun Side Palace. How can we return? Princess Qingqing snorted and said, plus, this princess didn't have time to ask for His Majesty's forgiveness after the battle at Chaomuya. This gathering is a good opportunity. If this princess doesn't come and His Majesty asks, won't this princess be punished? This servant knows. Yu Xiaojing smiled bitterly, but this servant is worried about your highness' injuries. There's no need for that. Princess Qingqing waved her hand in annoyance, stopping Yu Xiaojing from speaking. A rare look of confusion appeared in her eyes. She wasn't looking at Yu Xiaojing or Princess Miao Miao. Instead, she was looking at the boundless stars. Your Highness. Yu Xiaojing glanced at Princess Miao Miao and whispered to Princess Qingqing, you haven't seen many messages yet. This servant thinks you should take a look before entering the Lingyun Side Palace. We'll see. Princess Qingqing frowned again. Her injuries were clearly acting up again. She said impatiently, nothing is more important than asking for His Majesty's forgiveness right now. Yes, Your Highness. Yu Xiaojing opened her mouth but stopped when she saw Princess Qingqing's pain. Big sister. Princess Miao Miao's gentle voice rang out when she saw Princess Qingqing in such a state. I heard you went to Prime Purity Palace after returning from Dawn and Dawn. Why haven't you recovered yet? Humph. Princess Qingqing's eyes flashed with shame and anger. The one who injured me is a Taoist Grand Ascension Stage cultivator. He seems to be even more powerful than the master of the Shangqing Palace. The master's medicine can only treat the symptoms, not the root of the problem. If I want to recover, I'll have to rely on my own cultivation. Ah. A Taoist Mahayana, he. How could he ignore his status and bully the weak? Princess Miao Miao was shocked and patted her chest, worried for Princess Qingqing. Thank goodness you're lucky. But how long will it take for you to recover? I'm afraid. It won't be for at least 1,000 years. Princess Qingqing replied through gritted teeth. Alas, elder sister. Princess Miao Miao turned her head and looked to the left of the imperial canopy. She waved her hand to signal those female officials to stay away. Then, she said in a low voice, although I don't understand these fights and I don't like to compete, I still occasionally hear some rumors. What rumor? Princess Qingqing withdrew her thoughts and asked indifferently. Princess Miao Miao hesitated. Please don't be angry if I tell you. Tell me, I won't be angry. Princess Qingqing's face was a bit cold. It seemed she already knew what Princess Miao Miao wanted to say. Princess Miao Miao sighed, but she still said, I heard. You and Xin have some misunderstandings. You seem to have accidentally injured her back then. Since you're talking about Taoist Mahayana, you must be talking about Taoist Master Xiaohua, right? With his strength, how could he only injure you? Presumably, this move of his was also to avenge Xian, right? You injured Xin and he injured you. We're even now, don't take it to heart. Princess Qingqing knew Princess Miao Miao didn't like this kind of news. It was already good that she knew something. She shook her head. It's not Xiaohua, it's another cultivator. Another cultivator? Could it be the Grand Mist Ancestor? Princess Miao Miao was shocked. The Grand Mist Ancestor's cultivation is nothing. He's not even worthy of carrying his shoes. Princess Qingqing said casually, but there was a hint of arrogance in her words. She was shocked and hurriedly looked at Princess Miao Miao. Princess Miao Miao was also shocked and turned to look at Princess Qingqing. Their gazes met and they turned back at the same time as if they were electrocuted. It was absolutely strange. After a few breaths of silence, the two of them spoke at the same time. Sister, who is that person? Miao Miao, is there any important news recently? Princess Miao Miao didn't say anything. She lowered her head slightly and smiled faintly. Princess Qingqing's cheeks were burning and her eyes were a little messy. Sister. Princess Miao Miao stopped smiling and said softly, I never ask about the immortal palace or the hidden immortal continent. How would I know any important news? Forget it if you don't know. Princess Qingqing said perfunctorily. She looked at the Lingyun side palace and changed the topic. Sister, I remember that it's only been a few days since the Jade Lake Gathering. Why is the Jade Lake Gathering being held again? Who are they inviting? Is it the new Confucian sage? If you don't know, then I don't know either. Princess Miao Miao smiled. But it's the Empress' imperial decree. We'll go. No. Princess Qingqing became nervous as her imagination ran wild. I have to see what's going on first. Otherwise, I'll be caught off guard. Her. Yes, Your Highness. Yu Xiaojing naturally stayed away from the canopy and hid her ears in her heart. Seeing Princess Qingqing waving at her, she hurriedly flew over. Quick, show me the latest message Jade Eye. Princess Qingqing was anxious. Lightning flashed between her eyebrows again. She couldn't help but hold her heart again. Yu Xiaojing felt sorry for her, but she didn't dare to delay. She took out a dozen jade eyes and handed them over. Are you Princess Qingqing and Princess Miao Miao in front? The female general had already flown over and asked. Yes, it is our princess. Yu Xiaojing and a female official from the Bright Jade Palace responded and flew over. The Empress has decreed that the two princesses are to go to the Jade Lake immediately. The female general transmitted her voice. Yu Xiaojing smiled. Generals, please lead the way. This way please. The female general didn't dare to delay. She led the cloud bridge to the side door. Seeing that they were about to reach the side door, Princess Qingqing exclaimed from inside the canopy, how is this possible? The four noble houses actually. That damned servant, Gu Xianyun. Yu Xiaojing hurriedly flew back and whispered in panic, Your Highness, please don't be angry. Xianyun has already died in front of the Sunset Cliff. It's all this servant's fault for not reporting such an important matter. Phew. Princess Qingqing was naturally anxious as well. She cursed Gu Xianyun in anger when she didn't know about such an important matter. Seeing Yu Xiaojing so flustered, she couldn't help but feel annoyed. She sighed and said, Fine. It's not your fault. I didn't return to the Jasper Flower Palace and received the Empress' decree as soon as I returned. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from the night sky not far away. Hundreds of pillars of Aoran Qi descended from the starry sky. Within the pillars of Aoran Qi, clouds poured down like a waterfall. When the Aoran Qi fell into the clouds, it immediately emitted a brilliant light. What was special was that within the clouds, a flying phoenix palanquin flew over. Under the cover of the clouds, it looked like a phoenix that ruled over the world. An overwhelming majestic aura instantly covered the surrounding space. On the left side of the flying phoenix palanquin, the silhouettes of the dozens of women in palace robes became somewhat blurry. Is that the Empress flying phoenix palanquin? Princess Qingqing and Princess Miao Miao were surprised. Is the Empress not in the Jade Lake? The Empress is in the Jade Lake. The female general at the front replied, the Empress' decree flew in from outer space and the Empress sent the flying phoenix palanquin to receive it. I'm afraid it's an honored guest invited by the Empress. Oh. Princess Qingqing was surprised. She rolled her eyes and smiled, how many people in the world are worthy of the Empress sending the flying phoenix palanquin? Could it be the concubines of the four great clans? However, the four great clans just offended the immortal palace. Their concubines are close to the Empress, but they won't come to the Jade Lake. If it's not the four great clans, then it's the concubines of Gongshu, Duanmu, Kong, and Meng. Princess Miao Miao was also confused. But they don't seem to be qualified to sit in the flying phoenix palanquin. That's strange. Princess Qingqing shook her head and said, I can't think of anyone who can sit in the flying phoenix palanquin. Maybe it's the Dragon Queen of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? Princess Miao Miao asked again. The Dragon Empress of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas has never come to the Immortal Palace. Princess Qingqing shook her head and said, moreover, the dragon race is different from us humans. Their Dragon Empress is just a title. It's far from the status of the concubines of the 100 schools of thought. Forget it, sister. We don't need to guess. Princess Miao Miao said with a smile, we have to kneel when the flying phoenix palanquin appears. Won't we know when the honored guest comes out? Humph. Kneel. Princess Qingqing's eyes flashed with pride. One day, I will sit in the flying phoenix palanquin and make that slut kneel. Sigh. Princess Qingqing's voice wasn't loud, but Princess Miao Miao heard it clearly. She naturally knew who the slut was. She could only sigh and walk out of the imperial canopy. She walked to the side of the cloud bridge with Princess Qingqing and prepared to welcome the flying phoenix palanquin. The clouds were like a bridge. The palanquin above the clouds was like a phoenix that spread its wings and landed in front of the palace gate. Princess Qingqing and Princess Miao Miao had already flown to the palace gate from the side door when the palanquin approached. When the clouds converged, the flying phoenix palanquin stopped in midair. The clouds turned into a huge illusion of a phoenix and rushed through the red door. Behind the illusion, a woman in palace attire walked out of the palanquin. Princess Qingqing, Princess Miao Miao, and many other female officials hurriedly knelt on the ground and shouted, we respectfully welcome your majesty. As the phoenix illusion landed on the crimson door, the 36 stars flashed at the same time. Boom boom. The crimson door next to everyone slowly opened. The phoenix illusion landed inside the door and set off a complete brilliance. Many female officials flew out from the radiance and knelt on the ground while shouting, we respectfully welcome your majesty. Io, sister, get up, get up. Just as Princess Qingqing and Princess Miao Miao knelt on the ground and didn't dare to raise their heads, a familiar voice rang in their ears. Little sister doesn't deserve such great respect. Ah. Xin. When Princess Qingqing heard this, it was as though she had been struck by lightning. She looked up in shock and disbelief at the new princess who was blushing bashfully. She even looked at Bai and who was beside the new princess and exclaimed, you. When did you escape? Then, before Xin could speak, Princess Qingqing jumped up from the ground and scolded, Xin, what right do you have to sit in this flying phoenix palanquin? You've overstepped the etiquette and called yourself your majesty. Do you know that you've violated the immortal law? I'm going to see his majesty today to present a Qingqing. Just as Princess Qingqing was feeling embarrassed and angry, a kind voice came from inside the hall. Your younger sister has just escaped and returned to the Lingyun side hall. Why are you picking on her again? Don't you think you're being picky? Greetings, Celestial Empress. Princess Qingqing immediately bowed respectfully in front of the Lingyun side palace, greeting the Celestial Empress with the etiquette of a ruler and her subject. Get up. East Sea Empress looked at her competitive daughter and sighed. She flicked her sleeves and said, this isn't Lingyun side palace or Fragrance side palace. It's enough for you to call me mother. The etiquette of Confucian cultivators precedes the kinship of the immortal palace. Your son doesn't dare to overstep the bounds. Princess Qingqing naturally wouldn't let Princess Xin off. She said, it's precisely because your majesty dotes on Xin that she oversteps the bounds again and again. I hope your majesty will think twice in the future. Humph, how am I overstepping the bounds? East Sea Empress looked at Princess Qingqing with amusement and anger. She had called Princess Qingqing and Princess Miao Miao over today because Princess Miao Miao had a good relationship with Princess Qingqing and Princess Xin. She wanted to use the Jasper Lake meeting to ease the tension between the two princesses. But who would have thought that Princess Ching Ching and Princess Miao Miao would arrive at the same time as the new princess's flying phoenix sedan? Princess Ching Ching would kneel to the new princess in the flying phoenix sedan. Princess Ching Ching was naturally furious. She seemed to have overreached herself. Although the ninth princess is His Majesty's descendant and has a noble status, Princess Ching Ching seemed to have thought of something and her expression changed. She quickly shut her mouth. But a moment later, she gritted her teeth and said, she hasn't made any outstanding achievements. With her unmarried status, how can she sit in this flying phoenix sedan chair? Ching Ching. East Sea Empress' expression didn't change. She asked thoughtfully, these days. You weren't in the Jasper Flower Palace, right? Yes, Your Majesty. Princess Ching Ching replied, your son was injured by the Fortune Gate's lightning reverend on the Sunset Cliff. I've been recuperating in the High Purity Palace. And, if that's the case, Your Majesty will pardon you. East Sea Empress nodded and turned to a female official. Xiao, read His Majesty's decree to Princess Ching Ching. Yes, Your Majesty. The female official didn't dare to delay. She hurriedly got up and returned to the palace. A moment later, she flew out again with a decree in her hand. After the decree was unfurled, everyone except East Sea Empress knelt down and listened to the female official read it word by word. By the will of the heavens, the ancestors of the Confucian cultivators rejoice. Today, with the help of the ninth princess, I obtained the 5 energies unification technique from the master of the literary stream palace and found the true essence of my Confucian cultivation. My hidden immortal will return to the orthodox Confucian cultivation and will definitely shine for generations to come. This is one of the ninth princess' great achievements. After the Sutra Seeking of Extreme Bliss, I encountered danger in the Longevity Town. The ninth princess used the Mystic Origin water control flag to break the Connate 4 directions formation and saved me from danger. This is another of the ninth princess' great achievements. When the hidden immortal died and the 9 provinces formation collapsed, I, the ninth princess, fearlessly took the risk and brought my 9 provinces cauldron formation to the Tao Gate. This is the third of the ninth princess' great achievements. The ninth princess's 3 great merits are the auspicious purple clouds, the Eastern Ascension Immortal Palace, and her name in the annals of history. Therefore, this emperor hereby grants the ninth princess the title of Purple Clouds, and she will enjoy the first class of imperial concubines. PFFF. Before the female official could finish reading Immortal Emperor Go Chen's decree, Princess Ching Ching spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed in front of the Lingyun Side Palace. Sister. No one dared to move. Princess Xin hastily got up and helped Princess Ching Ching up. You. Why did you do this? Get out of my way. Princess Ching Ching's face was pale, but she still waved her hand and slapped Princess Ching Ching's hand away. You only obtained some opportunities. What's there to be arrogant about? Sigh. Princess Xin sighed. She looked at Princess Ching Ching and whispered, I've fought with you for thousands of years. Now that I look back, I find it laughable. From now on, the Immortal Palace is yours. I'll hand it over to you. Humph. Princess Ching Ching sneered. Don't try to fool me with these words. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Let me tell you, you've only taken a few more steps. The one who has the last laugh is the true winner. Sister. Princess Xin naturally wasn't afraid of Princess Ching Ching. She calmly replied, believe it or not. Only when you meet the things and people that you should meet will you realize that. The things that you worked so hard for before are really just smoke. Ching Ching. The East Sea Empress looked at Princess Ching Ching with heartache. She whispered, listen to His Majesty's decree first. Princess Ching Ching gritted her teeth and slapped Princess Xin's hand away again. She struggled to get up and kneeled. Ancestor, Fortune Gate's Xiao Hua is a handsome human. He created the Fortune Gate and established the Shao World Empire. He is our immortal palace's lightning master. He fought against the 4 great clans at Dawn and Dusk Cliff. He worked together with me to resist the 4 great clans at Longevity Town. His sincerity towards the 9th princess was felt by the heavens and broke the 9th princess heaven's punishment prison crystal. I cannot go back on my words. Today, I announce to the world that I agree to Xiao Hua's marriage proposal. Once Xiao Hua sets up the 9 provinces grand formation for our immortal palace, he can marry the 9th princess. Thus, the East Sea Empress smiled as she looked at Princess Qingqing. She knew that Princess Qingqing had always viewed the new princess as a strong rival. Now that the new princess had been given a title, she would be leaving the immortal palace. Now that she was going to marry Xiao Hua, the hatred between Princess Qingqing and the new princess would naturally disappear. Perhaps they would be able to bury the hatchet. Unfortunately, the East Sea Empress was still wrong. Princess Qingqing forced herself to listen, but when she heard the word wedding, her expression changed drastically. Pfff. Another mouthful of blood mixed with lightning gushed out of her mouth. Princess Qingqing had completely fainted in front of the Lingyun side palace. Princess Xian looked at Princess Qingqing with pity. However, she didn't go forward. She naturally treated Princess Qingqing as her elder sister and was willing to use her family to awaken her coldness. However, Princess Qingqing had already rejected her good intentions. How could Princess Xian help her? Send the 5th princess to Aijia's palace to rest. Call the medicine master to diagnose her. The East Sea Empress looked at the arrogant Princess Qingqing with heartache. She hurriedly ordered the female officials beside her. The female officials were a bit flustered. However, they quickly regained their composure. Some of them carried Princess Qingqing. They didn't dare to be rude and still entered through the side door. Some of them hurriedly went to pass the message. Of course, even more female officials surrounded the East Sea Empress and stood guard in front of the palace door. The East Sea Empress saw that the situation had stabilized. She sighed in her heart and forced a smile on her face. She said to Princess Xian, after you receive the edict today, Aijia can no longer call you Xian outside. As she spoke, the usually strong East Sea Empress suddenly felt sour in her heart. She actually had tears in her eyes. When Princess Xian saw the East Sea Empress smile, she saw the hypocrisy hidden behind it. Like Princess Qingqing, she also saw the immortal emperor's edict clearly. It wasn't to reward Xian, but to rope in Xiao Hua. Princess Xian even had some doubts in her heart. If she didn't have the same heart as Xiao Hua, even if Xiao Hua proposed to marry any of the immortal emperor's princesses, the names in the edict would be changed at will. However, seeing the tears in her mother's eyes, Xian's heart immediately softened. She was already so burdened facing Princess Qingqing in the immortal palace. What immortal Emperor Gaochen and the East Sea Empress had to face were the 4 great clans, the 100 schools of thought, and even the demon race and the Buddhist sect. They would definitely rack their brains and judge others by their own standards. Xian couldn't blame Her Majesty too much for scheming against Xiao Hua. Especially since these tears were tears of farewell. They were tears of reluctance. These tears made Xian think of many things. Xian couldn't help but cry as well. She fell into the East Sea Empress' arms. Cough cough. Princess Xian only lost her composure for a moment. The East Sea Empress came back to her senses. She gently coughed a few times and helped Xian up. She smiled and said, Princess Xixia, quickly receive the edict. Once we're done with the state affairs and enter the Lingyun side palace, Aijia will talk to you about family matters. Yes. As Xian stood up, she returned to normal and nodded with a smile. Also, The East Sea Empress looked at Bai Pen kneeling beside Zixia and said, Ijia knows that you have worked hard and contributed greatly. I have also asked His Majesty for a decree for you. I hope you will be satisfied. Bai Pen was shocked. She hurriedly kowtowed and said, this servant doesn't dare to be greedy. This is all new. Princess Zixia's good fortune. The East Sea Empress didn't say much. Another female official beside her took out an immortal emperor's decree and recited it. This decree naturally didn't reward Princess Zixia. It simply pointed out that Bai Pen had worked hard and contributed greatly. She was conferred the title of 4th-rank concubine and married to Fu Jiwen. In addition, the Fu clan of the peaceful mountain country was also conferred the title of 5th-rank aristocratic family. Of course, the Fu clan's status as a 5th-rank aristocratic family couldn't match Bai Pen's 4th-rank concubine etiquette. This also showed that the immortal emperor was fair in his rewards and punishments. This servant thanks the Empress and your Majesty for your grace. Bai Pen was so excited that her face turned red. She kowtowed and thanked the Empress with all her might. This was the etiquette of a 4th-rank concubine. How many women in the world could receive such an honor? Moreover, Bai Pen had always been traumatized by her affair with Fu Jiwen. Now that the immortal emperor had conferred her marriage to the world, the gloom in her heart had long dissipated. Not to mention, because Bai Pen had married into the Fu clan had also been promoted to a 5th-rank aristocratic family. This was something that the tiny Fu clan couldn't even dream of. Bai Pen was almost certain that once this decree was issued, the Fu clan would definitely worship her like a real concubine. Of course, while Bai Pen was thanking the Empress, she also understood that this decree wasn't just about informing Xiaohua and stopping the 4 great aristocratic families. It was also about her marrying Fu Jiwen, the famous Confucian cultivator of the Fortune Gate, Fu Jiwen. Yu Xiajing and the other female officials of the Jasper Flower Palace didn't dare to enter the Lingyun side hall without the East Sea Empress order. At this time, they were also kneeling at the side. When they and the female officials of the Jade Brightness Palace heard about Bai Pen's grace, they couldn't help but feel envious. There were countless female officials in the Immortal Palace. Although Bai Pen wasn't unprecedented, there probably wouldn't be anyone like her in the past 10,000 years. You all have seen it clearly. The East Sea Empress glanced at Yu Xiajing and the others and said coldly, the Emperor Star Palace's Bai Pen is your role model. You all should assist your princess well. Don't cause any trouble. I hope that there will be more decrees like this from my hands in the future. Yes, this servant understands. The female officials didn't dare to be disrespectful and hurriedly nodded in agreement. You all can enter from the side door. The East Sea Empress nodded and ordered, Miao Miao, I and Princess Zixia will wait for you at the Azure Sky Pavilion. Yes, Empress. After Princess Miao Miao and the others knelt, they watched as the East Sea Empress held Princess Zixia's hand and accompanied her into the palace. Then, they followed the other female officials into the side door. After entering the palace, they saw that it wasn't an ordinary palace. Instead, it was an expanse of lakes and mountains. What greeted them was a vast expanse of blue waves. The blue waves were like a mirror, reflecting all the strange scenes in the heavens above. When they looked at the heavens above, they saw that it wasn't a blue sky and white clouds. Instead, layers of 9-colored clouds formed a jade necklace, hanging above everyone's heads like lanterns and streamers. As if a gust of wind had blown past, the jade necklace swayed, and the entire sky swayed. Amidst the layers of jade necklace, even more multicolored clouds condensed into auspicious shapes of dragons and phoenixes. When these auspicious shapes fell into the blue waves surged like waves. Pillars of Aoran Chi that pierced through the heavens and the earth rose like steam, surging between the heavens and the earth. It was somewhat similar to the Buddhist light of the Buddhist sect. Countless images of mountains and rivers flashed out from these pillars of Aoran Chi. The sounds of war, the sounds of men plowing and women weaving, all appeared before everyone's eyes. However, the East Sea Empress and the others didn't pay attention to these beautiful scenes. Instead, they stepped into the auspicious shapes and landed on the blue waves. Clouds immediately surged out from the blue waves, supporting the East Sea Empress and Princess Xixia. They transformed into rainbows that fell into the depths of the blue waves. Wherever the rainbows passed, the jade necklace seemed to be blown by the wind, splitting into two. In just a moment, as the jade necklace swayed, a blue flower appeared in the air. This flower was sparkling and translucent, overflowing with precious light. Before it even flew close, a fragrance that seeped into one's heart followed everyone's gaze, emerging from their noses and mouths. When the fragrance filled the air, the space near the flower lit up with 9 colors. These 9 colors pushed the jade necklace apart, and countless lines and contours appeared between the gaps. When the East Sea Empress flew to the front of the lines, these lines quickly combined, and a jade-colored huading appeared before everyone's eyes. When the huading appeared, a rainbow bridge stretched out from the huading and caught the clouds beneath everyone's feet. When the rainbow bridge shrank, everyone's figures gradually disappeared before they could even touch the huading. Chapter 4669. Emerald Sky Pavilion was naturally a pavilion, but when Bai and followed Princess Xixia into the pavilion, she saw that it was actually a heavenly abode. Above her head was a clear sky, below her feet was a vast expanse of blue water, and around her were glittering golden flowers that appeared and disappeared with her every breath. How could she not know that this was the Jade Pool's heavenly abode? Bai and didn't think it was strange. She carefully lowered her head and followed beside Princess Xixia. When the East Sea Empress sat down, Princess Xixia stood beside her. The East Sea Empress raised her hand and a seat that looked like a flower bud appeared out of thin air. She smiled and said, "Exan. Xixia, now that you have a title, you can have a place in Emerald Sky Pavilion. Take a seat." Tears appeared in Princess Xixia's eyes. Looking at the picturesque East Sea Empress, she knew that although the East Sea Empress didn't look old, her state of mind was full of vicissitudes. Just her matters alone made the East Sea Empress worry a lot. If the East Sea Empress hadn't demoted Bai and from the heavenly abode, she didn't know when she would be able to see the light of day again. Of course, Princess Xixia knew that in addition to the East Sea Empress, she also had Xiao Hua, who valued his promises like gold. As long as Xiao Hua knew about her, he would definitely search high and low for her. With Xiao Hua's strength, she would definitely be able to escape. However, facing the mother who gave birth to her, Princess Xixia felt a rare warmth. She lowered her head and said, "Yes, Empress." As Princess Xixia sat down, Bai Pen carefully stood behind her. The East Sea Empress smiled and said, Xian, now that we are at Emerald Sky Pavilion, there is no need to follow the heavenly abode's etiquette. Just address me as family." "Yes, mother." Princess Xixia replied with a smile. Boy hasn't called mother that in a long time. Princess Xixia's words caused the East Sea Queen's eyes to redden. She wiped the corners of her eyes with her sleeve and sighed. "That's right, Xian. These years. It's been hard on you. Hearing Princess Xixia call the East Sea Empress mother, the East Sea Empress lost her composure again. Bai En and the maids beside the East Sea Empress didn't raise their heads and exchange glances. They all gently moved their bodies and left Emerald Sky Pavilion, standing outside the heavenly abode. Princess Xixia wasn't in a hurry to speak. She waited for Bai En and the others to leave before saying, "I've made Imperial Mother worry. Actually, in these 300 years. Come here and sit beside Mother." The East Sea Empress' expression was filled with love as she extended her hand towards Princess Xixia. Princess Xixia was shocked. After all, as far as she could remember, she had never been so intimate with the East Sea Empress. However, despite her surprise, Princess Xixia also understood that although she had not married Xiao Hua, immortal Emperor Go Chen's decree had already been passed down. She could no longer stay in the immortal palace. This was no different from marrying Xiao Hua. It would not be as easy for the Eastern Sea Empress to see her in the future. The Empress would only be so sad and lose her composure when she was about to lose something, right? Princess Xixia also felt a sense of loss. She stood up and walked to the side of the East Sea Empress. The East Sea Empress held Princess Xixia's hand and hugged her. That warmth made Princess Xixia feel like she had returned to her childhood. Imperial Mother. Princess Xixia whispered, actually, in these 300 years, although the boy had suffered some hardships, the boy had also gained a lot. When the boy met Xiao Hua, he had already taught the boy the 5 energies unifying origin technique. The boy used these 300 years to painstakingly cultivate. These 300 years were just the blink of an eye. At this point, Princess Xixia even said mischievously, I won't hide it from Imperial Mother. The boy knew that Xiao Hua's cultivation was low at that time. The boy even thought that after he cultivated to the literary saint realm, he would break through the seal on his own. Sigh, this kind of thing. Why didn't you tell Imperial Mother? The East Sea Empress sighed. A bitter smile appeared on Princess Xixia's face. The immortal emperor's decree had already been passed down. If the boy told Imperial Mother, it would only make things difficult for Imperial Mother. Rather than that, it would be better not to say it. It's good that you weren't suppressed in the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. The East Sea Empress still had some lingering fear as she said, Imperial Mother was afraid that you would be like Bai and then fall into the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. There would be no righteous chi, no heaven-earth yuan chi, only darkness and loneliness in your eyes. Perhaps. Princess Xixia said with some hesitation, this is also one of His Majesty's plans. Sigh, perhaps. Hearing Princess Xixia mention immortal Emperor Go Chen and thinking about the innate 5-element flags, the East Sea Empress couldn't help but think too much. She said, no matter what His Majesty's plans were, you still profited from a disaster. Tell Imperial Mother the whole story. Yes, Imperial Mother. Princess Xixia didn't dare to delay. She recounted everything that happened after she was suppressed in Liao River and how she broke through the seal. She didn't hide anything. The East Sea Queen's expression also changed after hearing this. Although she had some complaints about immortal Emperor Go Chen, they were husband and wife after all. She had only heard about the innate 4 cardinal formation from others and didn't think much of it before. But now, she understood that if it wasn't for Xiao Hua and Princess Xixia's mystic origin water control flag, immortal Emperor Go Chen might not have been able to return safely from Longevity Town. The East Sea Empress couldn't help but hug Princess Xixia and say, Xin, you are indeed Imperial Mother's lucky star. I wouldn't dare. This. I'm afraid His Majesty has arranged everything. While Princess Xixia was enjoying her mother's love, she was still brooding over immortal Emperor Go Chen's suppression. Xin, you don't need to think so much. The East Sea Empress smiled bitterly and said, since you were born in the immortal palace and became His Majesty's princess, then you can't not face these things. Moreover, if His Majesty was really ruthless and directly suppressed you in the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal, how could you cultivate the 5 elements origin and refine the mystic origin water control flag? It was only a temporary scheme, a backup plan, a preparation, but He also had the intention to take care of you. Your injuries were also healed during the suppression, weren't they? Yes, Imperial Mother. Princess Xixia nodded and said with a smile, Boy has known about this since he was young, and this boy understands it even more now. Boy thanks Imperial Mother for giving Boy such a good opportunity to accompany Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua is a good child. Hearing Princess Xixia mention Xiao Hua, a smile appeared on the East Sea Empress' face. She said, not to mention Sun Jian, who has always been arrogant, praising Xiaohua to the point that it's rare in the heavens and earth, even the three pure palace master, who he fought before, was full of praise. Not to mention the information that Imperial Mother obtained from other sources. He is already a Taoist Mahayana cultivator, but he still doesn't have a dual cultivation partner. It seems he has deep feelings for you. When did you two meet and fall in love with each other? Princess Xia blushed slightly and said in a low voice, boy doesn't know either. I just experienced life and death with him once, and after that, I couldn't help but like him. At this point, regardless of whether the East Sea Empress knew the details, Princess Xia told her everything that had happened in the Mystic Water Palace at the bottom of the river. Actually, the East Sea Empress said with a smile, this is fate. Back then, Imperial Mother didn't like His Majesty. Moreover, His Majesty was much weaker than the heirs of the four great clans. However, after seeing you a few times, Imperial Mother couldn't help but like His Majesty. It was rare for the East Sea Empress to be so happy, and she actually talked about some past events that even Princess Xia didn't know about. After talking for a while, Princess Xia said with a smile, Imperial Mother, I'm afraid Sister Miao Miao has already arrived. It's not good to let her wait outside for too long. Yes, Imperial Mother knows. The East Sea Empress nodded and said, after you participate in this Jade Pool meeting, you will need His Majesty's decree to come to the Immortal Palace again. It's difficult for Imperial Mother to see you, so let her wait outside for a while. Yes, Imperial Mother. Princess Xia was born and raised in the Immortal Palace. She had been scheming against Princess Qing for so many years. When she heard the East Sea Empress' words, she immediately understood that the East Sea Empress must have some business to attend to other than family matters. Thus, she got out of the East Sea Empress' arms and said respectfully, boy understands. Seeing her daughter like this, the East Sea Empress was also heartbroken. However, she still hardened her heart and asked, Xin, Imperial Mother still has a few things to ask you. Imperial Mother, please speak. Princess Xia nodded. Boy will definitely tell Imperial Mother what he knows. The East Sea Empress pondered for a moment, then looked into Princess Xia's eyes and asked, the Fortune Gate. Unfortunately, before she could finish, Princess Xia smiled sweetly and said, Imperial Mother, forgive this boy for being unfilial. Boy has been engaged to Xiaohua, so boy is Xiaohua's person and no longer belongs to the Immortal Palace. My Confucian cultivator's daughter scripture clearly states that if a woman marries a chicken, she must follow the chicken, if she marries a dog, she must follow the dog. Boy must not speak about the Fortune Gate. The East Sea Empress had already expected Princess Xia to answer in such a way. She smiled and said, His Majesty's decree has not been made public yet, so you are not considered. Before the East Sea Empress could finish, Princess Xia interrupted her again and said, then Imperial Mother will be disappointed again. Boy has escaped from the Longevity Town and returned to the Fortune Gate with Xiaohua. He has not entered the Fortune Dao Palace. Therefore, I don't know anything about the Fortune Gate's matters. All right. The East Sea Empress's face was expressionless. She nodded slightly and said, in that case, Imperial Mother will not force you. However, can Imperial Mother ask about some matters outside the Fortune Gate? Princess Xia smiled bitterly and said, Imperial Mother, boy has only been in the Soaring Dragon Mountain range for 3 to 5 days. Even if he wants to find some secrets to report to Imperial Mother, I'm afraid he doesn't have the time. Imperial Mother knows that I'm making things difficult for you. Helplessness appeared on the East Sea Empress's face. She shook her head and said, but Imperial Mother still wants to ask you. Imperial Mother, please speak. Princess Xia naturally understood the meaning of the East Sea Empress's words and nodded. Master Xingyue. The East Sea Empress's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at Fairy Zixia. She asked word by word, "Have you heard Xiao Hua mention her whereabouts?" Master Xingyue. Princess Zixia was stunned. She looked at the East Sea Empress with confusion and asked, "Why did your Majesty suddenly ask this?" The East Sea Empress thought for a moment and replied, "You can ask Xiao Hua about this secret. He naturally knows. Imperial Mother does not have your Majesty's permission, so it is not easy for me to explain. You only need to answer Imperial Mother's question." Princess Zixia thought for a moment and replied, "When we were at the Fortune Gate, Xiao Hua did not mention Master Xingyue's whereabouts to Boy. So it's like that." The East Sea Empress shifted her gaze away from Princess Zixia's face. It was unknown if she had noticed the little Xiao Hua in Princess Zixia's words, but she felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She nodded and said, "If that's the case, Imperial Mother will know. You've done well. We, Confucian cultivators, emphasize the 3 obedience and 4 virtues. Since you're going to be his wife in the future, you must think for him and serve your husband well." Seeing the gloomy expression on the East Sea Empress's face, Princess Zixia's heart ached slightly as she clearly thought of the conflict between her and immortal Emperor Go Chen. She forced a smile and said, "Imperial Mother, please rest assured. Xiao Hua is a man with deep feelings. If there's something, he will find the right time to tell Boy. Moreover, Boy is not the kind of person who is jealous. If both sides understand each other, then everything can be discussed." Princess Zixia's words had the intention of persuading the East Sea Empress. However, when she saw the East Sea Empress's ugly expression, her voice became softer and softer. In the end, Princess Zixia rolled her eyes and said with a smile, "However, Imperial Mother, although Boy cannot tell Imperial Mother the whereabouts of Master Xingyue, Boy can tell you who is currently in charge of Star Plucking Tower." "Oh. Who is it?" The East Sea Empress was stunned. The gloominess on her face disappeared as she asked Princess Zixia curiously. "Far away on the horizon but right in front of you." Princess Zixia mischievously blinked her eyes again. "I see." The East Sea Empress's eyes lit up. She immediately understood where Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue had gone, and a smile appeared on her face. The East Sea Empress's expression changed slightly. Princess Zixia immediately understood. She asked in surprise, "Imperial Mother, could it be that Master Xingyue has an extremely powerful background? The great array of the 9 states that has already been broken needs her to set it up again?" Previously, Princess Zixia did not understand why Immortal Emperor Go Chen had passed the method of setting up the great array of the 9 states to Xiao Hua through her. After all, she knew that with Xiao Hua's ability, even a Mahayana realm Taoist would not be able to set up the great array of the 9 states perfectly. However, after listening to the East Sea Empress's words, she could not help but have an idea. Sigh. Princess Zixia naturally did not mean to ask, but the East Sea Empress sighed again. "This is His Majesty's idea, not Imperial Mother's plan. Now that Xingyue is helpless, His Majesty's plan is probably like drawing water with a sieve. Let's see how he deals with this." Hee. Princess Zixia covered her mouth and giggled. "Darling Xiao is the most stingy. I'm afraid it's not easy to take out something that is already in his hands." The East Sea Empress did not know whether to laugh or cry when she thought of Xiao Hua's stinginess. She said softly, "His Majesty probably has the same idea. That's why he simply let you teach him the method of setting up the 9 states." Imperial Mother. Princess Zixia did not ask much about the 9 states' great formation. Instead, she smiled and said, "After Darling Xiao returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range from the Star Moon Palace, he handed the Star Plucking Tower to Bai Han. Boy followed Darling Xiao back to the Fortune Gate. Naturally, the Star Plucking Tower is in the hands of Boy. That's right, Imperial Mother, bite and brought back a lot of good things from the star-plucking tower. Boy, you haven't seen Imperial Mother for a long time. Take these to show filial piety to Imperial Mother. As she spoke, Princess Xia took out a lot of rare items from her cosmos sack and presented them to the East Sea Empress. The East Sea Empress was a descendant of the Immortal Palace. What kind of rare items had she not seen before? However, what she saw was Princess Xia's filial piety. She accompanied Princess Xia to pick up and appraise the rare items one by one. After almost an hour, she smiled and said, Xin, Imperial Mother knows of your filial piety. This star moon is very important to Xiaohua. You must take good care of the star-plucking tower. With the star-plucking tower. In the future, even if Xiaohua has wives and concubines, he must put you first. Not only does he love you, but he must also respect you in his heart. Yes, Imperial Mother. Boy understands. Princess Xia carefully agreed again. Then, intentionally or unintentionally, she looked outside the azure sky pavilion. Ai, you are such a kind-hearted child. The East Sea Empress smiled and said, Imperial Mother only wants to talk to you for a while. You are thinking about other people's feelings. Imperial Mother, boy only does what he should do. What other people think. Boy doesn't care. Princess Xia also smiled and replied. Meow meow. The East Sea Empress said to the outside of the Azure Sky Pavilion, come in. Princess Meow Meow entered the Azure Sky Pavilion. The other maids waited outside and did not dare to come in. The moment Princess Meow Meow entered the Azure Sky Pavilion, she respectfully knelt down and greeted, Greetings, Imperial Mother. Princess Xia lowered her head and did not speak. However, she sighed in her heart. Princess Meow Meow was the least favored among the 9 princesses. However, she was also the most detached one. Princess Meow Meow was nervous when she saw Immortal Emperor Gaochen and the East Sea Empress. She did not know how to speak. Many of her answers were not in line with the Immortal Emperor and the Empress. For example, since she was kneeling, she should first call herself Imperial Mother, and then see what the East Sea Empress wanted to say. If it were the other 8 princesses, they would do the same. However, this Princess Meow Meow, even though Princess Xia reminded her many times, panicked when she saw the Emperor and the Empress. She forgot all the etiquette. Rise. The East Sea Empress was unhappy. Seeing Princess Meow Meow's lack of manners, she was even more unhappy. She indifferently waved her hand and asked Princess Meow Meow to rise. Princess Meow Meow heard the East Sea Empress' displeasure and became even more nervous. She replied, Thank you, Mother Empress. In an ordinary family, Mother Empress meant mother. As a child, it could be called casually. However, in the Immortal Palace's etiquette, unless the princess ordered it or the Empress agreed, it could not be called casually. Princess Xia heard Princess Meow Meow lose her sense of propriety again. She hurriedly smiled and said, Elder sister, come quickly. I haven't seen you for several hundred years. I really miss you. Princess Meow Meow naturally smiled. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly remembered her previous greeting. She frowned slightly and looked at Princess Xia with a regretful expression. How have you been recently, elder sister? Princess Xia naturally wanted to find something to talk about and casually asked. Facing her younger sister, Princess Meow Meow immediately regained her liveliness. She smiled and said, Elder sister can't be compared to younger sister. You can casually go down to the lower realm and meet your ideal husband. Even if you are punished by His Majesty, it is still a blessing in disguise. Moreover, younger sister's ideal husband is someone that Empress and His Majesty can rely on. My Immortal Palace and Empress should also talk to younger sister more. The East Sea Empress' expression improved slightly. She smiled and said, Everyone has their own fortune. Meow Meow, you don't need to think too much. For now, you should talk more with Xia. After the Jade Pool meeting, if you want to see her, it will be a little troublesome. Hee, Mother Empress. Princess Xia wanted to help Princess Miao Miao. She smiled and said, although darling Xiao is stingy, he is definitely not a petty person. If elder sister is willing, you can go to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Younger sister will welcome you with open arms. Good. The East Sea Empress heard and smiled. She nodded and said, once Xia leaves, I don't know when she will return. I can't go visit often. However, Miao Miao can go in my place. Xia, the Fortune Dao Palace has 3 elders. If possible, you can find a suitable one for Miao Miao. Oh, right, does the Fortune Dao Palace only have these 3 elders? Of course the Fortune Dao Palace doesn't. Princess Xia was immersed in her family and accidentally answered. But she only said half a sentence before she realized that something was wrong. She immediately stopped and looked at the East Sea Empress with a bitter smile. Mother Empress, this boy doesn't know how many elders there are in the Fortune Dao Palace. Reverend Yun had a profound cultivation base, and he had been guarding the Fortune Dao Palace for a long time. If he was the 4th master of the Fortune Dao Palace, he would be stronger than the 3rd master of the Fortune Dao Palace. However, Reverend Yun had the 1st and 2nd master of the Fortune Dao Palace, and his overall strength was not any weaker than Xiao Lang. However, if Mother Empress is willing, this boy can talk to darling Xiao. That lightning reverend and heavenly being are both human race's Mahayana realm experts. If Sister Miao Miao marries them, it will definitely not taint our immortal palace. Princess Xia's first sentence was naturally an explanation to the East Sea Empress. Her second sentence was obviously a perfunctory one. She was just casually playing along with the East Sea Empress words. However, when Princess Miao Miao heard this, she became anxious and waved her hand. Xian, please don't. If Ching. Princess Miao Miao realized that she had said something wrong and hurriedly stuck out her tongue and lowered her head. However, Princess Miao Miao's unintentional words attracted the East Sea Empress and Princess Xia's attention. The East Sea Empress said unhappily, Miao Miao, you are you, and Ching is Ching. Your matter has nothing to do with her. If you marry the Fortune Dao Palace's 2nd elder or 3rd elder, it will be beneficial to the immortal palace. The East Sea Empress's words were a little blatant, but Princess Xia and Princess Miao Miao felt that it was only natural. After all, in the eyes of the immortal palace and the 100 families, the meaning of marriage was more towards the family's interests. The so-called feelings were just collateral. Princess Xia was also very happy that she was able to meet such a good husband like Xiao Hua. However, Princess Xia knew Princess Miao Miao far better than the East Sea Empress. She knew that although Princess Miao Miao was afraid of the East Sea Empress and the Immortal Emperor, she was not afraid of Ching and the other princesses. She frowned and asked curiously, Sister, what do you mean? Could it be that Ching? This. Princess Miao Miao's face was a little red, and she even said uneasily, you have to ask Ching about this. I don't know. It would have been better if Princess Miao Miao did not say anything. The moment she said this, even the East Sea Empress understood a little. She also frowned and looked at Princess Miao Miao. It would have been better if the East Sea Empress did not look, but when she did, Princess Miao Miao became even more flustered. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, Mother, about Princess Ching and the lightning reverend. Princess Miao Miao was completely dumbfounded. She did not dare to say another word. She nervously knelt on the ground and kowtowed, Empress, boy really doesn't know. Mother. Seeing that Princess Miao Miao's face was pale with fright, Princess Xia hurriedly smiled and said, Don't ask, let the boy talk to sister. The East Sea Empress looked at Princess Miao Miao with some pity, but did not say anything. Her gaze was filled with a complicated expression. It was hard to tell if it was disgust or love. Sister. Princess Xia walked in front of Princess Miao Miao and reached out to hold her ice-cold hand. She smiled and said, "Don't be too nervous. Didn't you say a lot when I accompanied you to drink at Jade Brightness Palace? You and I are sisters. If I can get it, you can too. You are not inferior to anyone." Xia. Princess Miao Miao's heart calmed down slightly. Although her voice was still trembling, she was no longer nervous. She forced a smile and replied, "You are wrong. Everyone is different from others. This was already confirmed when this person was born. Temperament, character, temper, and so on are not easy to change. Although you and I are both princesses of the immortal palace, temperament determines everything. I won't talk about others, but I will talk about you. Forbearance, magnanimity, modesty, but not avoidance. These are all things that allow you to handle things with ease. Sister knows her own limits. Being an idle princess and being able to share some of His Majesty's and Empress's worries is enough. I can't do anything." Princess Miao Miao had already said these words to Princess Xia. Princess Xia only brought it up again to ease the atmosphere. Thus, Princess Xia smiled and said, "Sister's words are also very good. Just be yourself and live your life well. Actually, you don't have to force yourself." "Thank you, Xia." Princess Miao Miao held Princess Xia's hand and said sincerely, "Sister heard His Majesty's decree just now. Sister is really happy for you. Only a perfect girl like you can have such a wonderful life." Seeing that Princess Miao Miao had calmed down, Princess Xia let go of her hand, blinked her eyes, and said, "Since Sister said Sister is perfect, do you think Sister will hit you when you are down? These are two different matters." Princess Miao Miao naturally understood what Princess Xia was talking about. She shook her head and said, "If you want to hit me when I am down, there are too many opportunities. So, you can rest assured and tell me the cause of this matter." Princess Xia smiled and said, "If you don't tell me now, won't it be even more troublesome when Qing blames you if something really goes wrong?" "All right." Princess Miao Miao naturally understood the stakes. Since she had already spoken and was also worried about Princess Qing, when would she say it if not now? Thus, Princess Miao Miao told them about the awkward moment she had just faced Princess Qing. For a moment, Princess Xia and the East Sea Empress looked at each other in dismay. Although what Princess Miao Miao said wasn't very strange and couldn't be considered evidence, and could even be said to be baseless guesses, from a woman's intuition, there was definitely something wrong with Princess Qing's thoughts that what exactly is going on. The East Sea Empress was somewhat angry and asked in a low voice. "Empress, the boy doesn't know. The boy only just found out about these clues." The moment the East Sea Empress spoke, Princess Miao Miao lost her composure and hurriedly answered. Princess Xia smiled and said, "Mother, the matter isn't clear yet. Why get angry now? Didn't Qing see the Thunder Immortal during the Battle of Day and Mu Cliff? Why don't we just ask what exactly happened? Where are the female officials of Jasper Flower Palace?" The East Sea Empress was angry again, as if this matter should have been reported by a female official long ago. "Summon the female officials of Jasper Flower Palace." Princess Xia smiled and shouted outside. Following Princess Xia's voice, a portion of the female officials of Jasper Flower Palace flew into Jade Sky Pavilion and respectfully knelt down. "Which one of you participated in the Battle of Day and Mu Cliff with Qing? Princess Xia's tone was very strict, far from the gentle tone she used to speak to Princess Miao Miao. The female officials looked at each other and shook their heads. They whispered, "This servant didn't go to Day and Mu Cliff. Where is Yu Xiajing?" Princess Xia asked indifferently. Princess Xia, Yu Xiajing was worried about Princess Qing's injuries, so she went to look after the princess. The female officials didn't dare to stand up and hurriedly replied, please calm down, Empress. The East Sea Empress nodded. How could she punish such a loyal female official? Go and summon Yu Xiaojing. Princess Xia's face was expressionless as she continued to give the order. Moments later, Yu Xiaojing was ordered to arrive at Jade Sky Pavilion. As soon as she flew in, she immediately felt that something was wrong. After all, the female officials of Jasper Flower Palace were still kneeling on the ground, and the East Sea Empress looked displeased. Yu Xiaojing didn't even think as she knelt down and kowtowed, "This servant greets Empress. Princess Qing's injuries haven't healed yet. If Empress wants to punish. This servant doesn't dare to say that I'll take responsibility, but Empress, please postpone the punishment." Yu Xiaojing's words were very appropriate, and the East Sea Empress heard it and nodded slightly. Beside her, Princess Xia thought for a moment and smiled. "Yu Xiaojing, don't be afraid. Empress just wants to ask about Chao Muya's situation." Chao Muya. Yu Xiaojing was confused and whispered, "What do Empress and Princess want to ask?" This servant doesn't dare to keep quiet. Stand up. Princess Xia ordered, then looked at the other female officials. "You may leave." "Yes, Princess." The female officials didn't seem to find it strange that Princess Xia was giving orders in Jade Sky Pavilion. They respectfully bowed and left Jade Sky Pavilion. The East Sea Empress looked at Princess Xia with satisfaction. After all, what Yu Xiaojing was about to say might affect Princess Qing's reputation, or even more seriously. Who knew if there were other princesses or spies of the four great clans among the female officials of Jasper Flower Palace? Yu Xiaojing, tell me, what happened between Qing and Thunder Immortal? Princess Xia didn't know how to phrase it, so she could only ask ambiguously. Who would have thought that once Princess Xia said that, Yu Xiaojing's face turned cold. Anger flashed in her eyes. Even her tone became somewhat ambiguous. She coldly said, "Your Highness, others may not know about this, but how could you not know about it? Back then, my princess only injured you. Now, not only did you injure my princess, you even want to ruin my princess's reputation. Princess Xia, you truly deserve to be called Xia. Men. Slap her." Princess Xia didn't hold back and immediately gave the order without waiting for Yu Xiaojing to finish. "Yes, Princess." Princess Xia's voice came out of Jade Sky Pavilion, and two female officials immediately responded. Two thin and weak female officials flew in and slapped Yu Xiaojing's face. Yu Xiaojing stubbornly knelt there, not daring to resist. After two slaps, Yu Xiaojing's face was already swollen. "You wait." Princess Xia indifferently ordered the two female officials to leave. Then she said to Yu Xiaojing, Qing has always been headstrong and self-opinionated. Empress Dowager sent you to assist Qing to correct her shortcomings and help her deal with things. This is the key to loyalty. Who doesn't know how to ask about others' well-being? Yu Xiaojing, as a female official of Jade Flower Palace, you put the cart before the horse. You abandoned your own nature and flattered the princess. Today, you didn't tell the details of the truth, but directly framed me. How should I punish you? East Sea Empress saw Princess Xia's punishment and felt a trace of displeasure in her heart. But when she heard Princess Xia's words, she couldn't help but be shocked. Although Yu Xiaojing was loyal to Princess Qing and seemed to be protecting Princess Qing, from another point of view, she was really harming Qing and pushing Qing towards the cliff. This was because Princess Xia had never mentioned the matter of Princess Qing injuring Princess Xia in front of everyone. This Yu Xiaojing only needed to say a few words to expose the conflict between the two princesses. Moreover, during the battle at Chaomuya, Princess Xia had still been suppressed and hadn't broken free. How could Princess Xia have instructed the Lightning Sage to hurt Princess Qing? This was clearly slander. Damn you! East Sea Empress said angrily, I only called you here to ask you some questions, but you didn't answer truthfully and actually slandered Princess Xia. What are your intentions? Yu Xiaojing didn't think much of it because she understood Princess Qing's thoughts the best. Moreover, she had subconsciously made Princess Xia look bad. When Princess Xia asked about the lightning sage, Yu Xiaojing's first reaction was, Princess Xia had set a trap for Princess Qing. Thus, she immediately defended Princess Qing and wanted to expose Princess Xia's ugly face and so-called plans. However, Princess Xia's words immediately made her panic. After all, it was Princess Qing who had done this first. Even if Princess Xia had instigated the lightning sage to take revenge, it was only natural. Furthermore, Princess Xia hadn't broken free at that time. Moreover, Princess Xia didn't mention Princess Qing at all. Instead, she slapped her. This was a secret warning to her. It didn't matter if she was punished, but what about Princess Qing? How could the current Princess Qing be a match for Princess Xia, who was at the peak of her power? Empress, how much is this servant's fault? This servant shouldn't have spoken nonsense. Please punish me, Empress. Yu Xiaojing didn't hesitate to kowtow and beg. Seeing that Yu Xiaojing didn't dare to circulate her energy and that her forehead was bleeding, Princess Xia didn't say anything. An immortal palace. Although it was superior to a mortal palace, it was still a palace. Princess Xia was used to fighting in the open and in the dark. She naturally wasn't like Xiaohua. The East Sea Empress naturally wouldn't expect Princess Xia to plead on Wuxia's behalf. Seeing the bloodstains, she coldly snorted and said, "This Empress just said that I hope you all can follow by An's example and assist your own princess. In the future, this Empress will also have more decrees to issue. You actually dared to disobey my words. You truly disappoint me. Yes, it's all this servant's fault. Please punish me, Empress." Yu Xiaojing didn't dare to argue and only asked for punishment. East Sea Empress coldly snorted again and didn't say anything else. Yu Xiaojing understood. She lamented in her heart and turned to Princess Xia. She kowtowed and said, "Your Highness, this servant spoke nonsense just now. Please punish me. This matter has nothing to do with my princess. Yu Xiaojing, because you tried to sow discord, I will punish you severely. However, seeing how loyal you are, I'm afraid you've heard those words for a long time and have overthought them. You're also worried about Qing. That's why you've said them," Princess Xia said indifferently. "Therefore, I don't intend to punish you. I just want to warn you that if you don't change your ways and offend me again in the future, if I hear any rumors, I won't let you off easily." Yes, this servant understands. Yu Xiaojing's heart relaxed and she stopped kowtowing. Also, Princess Xia continued, "When Qing wakes up, you have to tell her not to judge others with her own heart. Many disturbances are just self-inflicted troubles." Yes, this servant understands. Yu Xiaojing didn't dare to say anything else and only nodded. "All right." Princess Xia waved her hand and said, "Rise and answer me. What happened at Chaomu Cliff?" Yu Xiaojing stood up and recounted Chaomu Cliff's formation and the battle in detail. Hearing that the lightning reverend was so ruthless that he didn't even care about Princess Qing's reputation and directly attacked her chest, the East Sea Empress's face darkened, and Princess Xia was abnormally embarrassed. Not to mention a descendant of an immortal emperor, even an ordinary female cultivator would be too ashamed to face the world after being humiliated by a man. The Emerald Sky Pavilion was silent. Princess Xia's mind was spinning rapidly, but she didn't know what to say. After all, no man would do such a thing to a female cultivator. She was doubting the truth of Yu Xiaojing's words. Unfortunately, just as she was about to speak, the East Sea Empress unhappily said, "Xia." "Yes, Empress. Princess Xia hurriedly stood up. This matter. The Fortune Gate must give the Immortal Palace an explanation. The East Sea Empress said, the Lightning Reverend is a Taoist at the Grand Ascension stage. If he wanted to injure Qing Qing or obtain the Milky Way Grand Formations disk, he had many ways to do so. How could such a frivolous method be something a man would do? The story of the immortal world and the desolate era is in everyone's hands. The third place tearfully asks for subscriptions. If the subscriptions exceed 1,000, the immortal world will be opened. Next, I ask for monthly votes. If the monthly votes exceed 100, I'll add more chapters. Third, I ask for recommendations. If the monthly votes exceed 1,000, I'll add more chapters. How Xiaohua went against the light to become a true saint will depend on everyone. The third place thanks.